Very good morning to you, by the way. Morning, Tory, with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Are we ready? It is 2 minutes past 6 in the morning. It is Saturday. Your weekend starts here. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan, and we are in the home of common sense. All of today's front pages, a packed 4 hours. Who won the party conference season? Jeremy Clarkson, writing in today's Sun newspaper, loves the Tory party. Remember them? Has Kemi pulled it out the bag and given Nigel Farage a fresh political headache? Are the Tories back? Some developing stories this morning. Jeffrey Epstein, disgraced dead paedophile, met Tony Blair in Downing Street. Could this be a scandal that threatens to engulf the Labour Party? Migration crisis. More than 35,000 people have crossed to the UK on small boats this year. 26 have been returned. Let's do the maths on this. I'm no Carol Vorderman, executive producer Dean Spencer, but let's look at the numbers. 35,000 people in, 26 out. I think I would call that an epic fail. Will bring reaction. Meanwhile, what a scam illegal immigration is. The Taliban, who apparently, last time I checked, are not very nice people. They're not salt of the earth. They've been selling fake death threats for £40 for asylum seekers to dupe the UK, to con their way into the United Kingdom and to rip you off. Welcome to Broken Britain. The migrant found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage after a chilling gun gesture video is to be sentenced next week. Will he get longer than Lucy Connolly? I doubt it. We'll be speaking to the very prominent Conservative spokesperson and campaigner and activist who was a Tory member. Then she went to Reform. Now she's going back to the Tories. Are the Tories back? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. And this is not a drill. The monologue is back at 8 a.m. in Dolan's dispatch. Bad orange man strikes again. The contrast between America's bold and visionary leadership as Donald Trump strikes an amazing peace deal in the Middle East couldn't be stronger with the grey man of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, who is presiding over the collapse of this great country. That is Trump versus Starmer in today's Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. Appointment to view, appointment to listen. And let me tell you, I'm not pulling my punches. Speaking of which, legendary ex-boxer, of course, Ricky Hatton. What a tragedy that he passed away earlier this month. Tributes to Ricky Hatton are coming in. And, folks, we got to do this, which is Meghan Markle. Is she planning a return to the UK? And are Harry and Meghan humanitarians? Do me a favour. So, my priority for the next 4 hours is your opinions. Let's get them on the radio, let's get them on TV. Because don't forget, we're not just on the radio. This is Talk Radio. It's also Talk TV. You can watch the show via YouTube. Just search Talk TV. We're in-app. We're everywhere. You can't get us anywhere that you don't want to get us. We are everywhere. And let me tell you, a big 4 hours to come. As the saying goes, let's talk. And we kick off with a comprehensive look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and we start with the Daily Express. William's call to tackle this preventable tragedy. Emotional Prince pledges £1 million for a network to stop heartbreaking suicides. Prince William fought back tears as he backed plans to tackle suicide whilst listening to a woman whose son and husband died just 5 days apart. The Times newspaper, Israel begins Gaza retreat, and ministers fear Prime Minister's security advisor is too close to China. When was the last time you saw a good headline for this government? 0344 499 1000. Answers on a postcard. The Daily Mirror, Ricky Hatton, 1978 to 2025. I can't believe he's gone. It is such a tragedy. A champ to us all. Fans lined the streets as stars join family for farewell to boxing's humble hero. We've got the FT, the Financial Times. Trump reignites China trade war. Isn't it amazing that the Financial Times, the incredibly left-wing Financial Times, which used to be a venerated newspaper of record and is now a lefty rag, they found a negative headline about Donald Trump on the day that he brokered peace in the Middle East. Trump reignites China trade war. Good. Let's have a trade war, because from where I'm standing, Donald Trump has improved the terms by which America trades with the world. Bring it on. The Guardian, Palestinians in long walk to uncertainty as ceasefire starts. Again, amazing negativity from the left-wing press. There's a peace deal in Gaza, and producer Dean, they've managed to come up with a negative headline. Palestinians in long walk to uncertainty. It's not long walk to uncertainty. It's a short walk to peace. Delivered by the bad orange man, Donald Trump, who is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Well, I'm delighted to say, with me for the first hour, is one of the most provocative voices in political journalism. It is the presentation coach, broadcaster and intellectual colossus that is Graham Davies. Graham, good to see you.
Delighted to be here. I'm delighted to hear that delicious description.
Well, listen, I'm delighted. By the way, now, is it Davies or Davis?
It's actually pronounced Davis. It's very Welsh. There are lots of Davis cousins out throughout southwest Wales, but we are very clear at all times it is pronounced Davis.
And where do you stand on people whose surname is spelled D-A-V-I-E-S, who pronounce it Davies?
I feel that they're blasphemers and really ought to be eradicated.
Because there are some people who are Davises who insist on Davies. Is that right? Have you encountered these people?
I have occasionally, but they're very strange individuals that I like to try and avoid.
It's a curveball. It's a blind spot for me, but now I know, and it's great to see you. You have, of course, advised former prime ministers, some of the most high-profile politicians in the country on their presentation skills. Who won the party conference season, do you think?
Well, the pre-conference betting might have been that Farage and Jenrick might storm through, and that Badenoch would fade away as a prelude to making an exit. In fact, quite the opposite happened. Nigel Farage was quite disappointing in both his speeches at the Reform Convention. Jenrick really shot himself in the foot, and Kemi put on a surprising Conservative cabaret at her conference.
Well, I thought she channeled the DNA and the spirit of Mrs. Thatcher.
Well, people sometimes say, oh, you shouldn't go back to the past. Well, going back to the past in a continuous loop sort of works for the Conservative Party. And this, again, is an example of it. It's a hint of a 2025 version of Back to Basics.
Oh, that's very interesting, isn't it? So what went wrong for Jenrick? Why are you so dismissive of his speech?
Well, he tried to do a sort of Camp Kenneth Williams routine. He has a habit of always telegraphing the humour that he's going to use and building up to it and sort of winking at the audience and coming across as a little bit too smug. And he had his Four Blondes routine, which took a long time, took many words to come out with, and really I couldn't quite understand the payoff of the routine. And also he built up to his big set-piece moment where he pulled something out of a box and he eventually rammed his fist up a judge's full bottom
Where's
wig.
this going? Family show, Dean.
And he came across a bit like Rod Hull and Emu. And a lot of politicians eventually become their own spitting image puppets towards the end of their career. With him, I'm afraid it started too early.
He went for props as well, didn't he? A barrister's wig. Did that work?
It was a judge's wig.
Oh, a judge's wig, yes.
A full bottom judge's wig. And he was holding it there as if it were some sort of horrific monster from an episode of Doctor Who. And much as, of course, there are some downsides of the current attitude of the judiciary to immigration, to actually try and portray them as a bunch of lefty radicals is probably a bit of a stretch, even for a Conservative audience.
Well, the funny thing is that in the run-up to the leadership election for the Conservative Party after the last election, after the debacle of July 2024, I watched all of the candidates very closely. And I felt that Robert Jenrick had been making all the right noises policy-wise and tonally in that campaign. Now, essentially what Robert Jenrick has done is he's read the writing on the wall that the sort of One Nation Tory party is over, it is gone, it's kaput, and that it's got to be certainly reform adjacent. If not almost the same as reform in order to recover. That's my personal view. I think the Tory party have to shift right.
He has almost looked at the political marketplace as if it were a corporate sales marketplace and looked at where the gap is. He has gone on a little bit of a journey philosophically and politically that Amber Rudd was
He's
saying...
been on a longer journey than Phileas Fogg.
Yes, indeed. A longer journey than St Paul went on in many ways. And some people...
Amber Rudd you were mentioning.
Indeed so. Right?
Former Home Secretary?
Former Home Secretary. And she remembered the cuddly left of centre Rob Jenrick, and she can't quite believe the pseudo-reform Rob Jenrick now. But he has done a calculation that is where the gap is for the Conservative Party.
Well, I agree, and that's why, you know, in the leadership election, I thought that he was making all the right noises. I think that he was, you know, he had positions on various policy areas which Kemi didn't. Kemi's sort of pitch to the membership was, I'm a Conservative, trust me, I'll come up with something. I promise.
I'm Kemi, like me. I have no policies, but you're going to like me better than you're going to like Rob.
That's it, and I promise you I'm a Conservative. So, but the reason why I swung in behind Kemi, if I was sort of given a choice of the two, is that it was my view that Kemi was a more natural, more authentic performer. She's no Thatcher, she's no tremendous orator, but there's something about Bobby J. He's a little stilted.
He is, and he's almost just a little bit too keen on how well his Ozempic course has gone, and indeed talked about it during his keynote speech, and did a little bit of a preen just to show how how well his tummy is looking. And he was sort of doing it, though, almost in a way that didn't sound like self-parody. It sounded as if he was taking his new appearance very seriously indeed.
Well, listen, what we're going to do next is we are going to have a look at Reform and Nigel Farage. My brilliant guest, Graham Davis, believes that Nigel Farage underperformed at his party conference. Is Nigel now looking over his shoulder at the Tories? Are the Tories back? We'll debate that next.
So a lot of these people who come from Syria or the Middle East, are various areas of Africa, they say, oh, we're from Sudan, because they know that that the British Home Office allows in 99% of Sudanese asylum.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Mark, says Sean in Gloucester. People have had enough of the same old lies from the two old parties, and certainly this current government have done nothing but supercharge the lies and sleaze. Whenever the next election happens, the Labour Party will be totally wiped out, making the kicking the Tories got at the last election pale into insignificance. The silent majority have found their voice and want a genuine, fresh approach. Nigel and Reform may not get everything right, might not be able to do all of the things that they want, but if they achieve as little as 10% done, then it's a biblical shift from what we've got now. That is Sean in Gloucester. Keep those messages coming. But let me ask my studio guest, Graham Davis, the presentation coach. Graham, what I want to ask you about is the battle of the conferences. And you've been quite underwhelmed by the performance of Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader. How so?
Nigel Farage, when he's at his best in front of a microphone, behind a lectern on a stage, is something of a public speaking thunderbolt. But to be at his best, he needs to prepare. He's a good wordsmith. He's good at honing them, good at sharpening them, and he's good at rehearsing and then performing them brilliantly on the day. Yeah. But the two interventions he made at his own conference this time, I think by his own admission, had been written literally at the last moment, and he had pieces of paper with handwritten notes that he was delivering from, which meant that essentially, instead of being a performance, it was a bit of a chat, and a bit of an underwhelming one at that.
Well, I know Nigel very well. I've worked with him over many years.
Yeah.
And he's a really nice guy. And one thing is that I judge people by how they treat their colleagues, you know, both above them, management, and below them. And he's a very, very respectful and pleasant man. And I've never heard a negative word said about him in terms of his broadcasting career. One thing I would say about Nigel is that he doesn't like scripts. He doesn't like things written down. So when he's on TV, there's no prompter script. He just gets on air, the red light goes on, and off he goes.
I do my judgment on the brilliance of his wordsmithery by having seen both of his performances during the TV debates during the general election, where, of course, you've got this weird mixture of mini political speeches, but in a TV format. And each individual candidate that's speaking in those multiple leader debates are told, look, you have to stick to the time limits with your individual opening speeches and closing speeches. His speeches were timed to the second. Now, I would be amazed if he hadn't actually pre-scripted those, because the way that he had the words and the rhythm together suggested that they'd been honed under pressure and not just come out with spontaneously. I'm open to correction if you know otherwise.
Well, no, I think those TV debates, you're right, they'll have thrashed out the lines.
And he was by far the best in those TV debates.
Yeah, definitely. I think there will definitely be lines that rehearsed. Also, what you've got with Farage is years and years of events, public platforms, working men's clubs, community groups. He's been walking the hard yards as a campaigner and activist for decades. So he's a past master at just getting on stage and riffing.
He is, but nevertheless, those who are really good at riffing, and I look at, say, Michael Gove in another party, he's a brilliant riffer himself, but he's far brillianter when he's done a little bit of preparation.
Well, this is what I'm thinking.
And I'm sure Nigel would be better with just a little bit more.
Well, this is it. But this is, you know, this is my kind of, you know, inside track on Farage, which is that he doesn't really like to be presented with or even write a 4,000-word speech. It's not his style. He shoots from the hip. He's authentic. You could just wake him up in the middle of the night and say, give me a few you know, sort of one-liners. Give me a few, and it would be effortless, because this is not. When you look at Keir Starmer, for me, everything that Keir Starmer does is preconceived, it's confected, it's manufactured. So therefore, when Nick Ferrari says, you know, what do you mean by working people? Starmer struggles. He's like, well, working people are people who go to work. He's straight, you know, what is a woman? Well, a woman is and the issue is that he's trying to think what his opinion is, as he's asked. But what you got with Farage, Farage doesn't have that problem, right? What you see is what you get. It's clear what he thinks. So he's very comfortable in his own skin. But I just wonder whether, as you said regarding his, you know, speech at conference, whether for those set-piece moments, he should write something.
It's a matter of courtesy to his audience in the room and the audience that are watching on television. The best time to say a brilliant idea is not half a second after you've thought it up. It's better if you thought about it 30 minutes in advance or a day in advance, because you get the chance to test it, to hone it, to sharpen it. Political speaking is about three things: legacies, lines, and likability. Yes, Farage has got the likability part absolutely sorted. Lines, nearly all the time he's got sorted, but not absolutely 100% of the time. Legacy, yes, indeed. He's got years and years of experience. It's the lines part of the triptych that he just mustn't be too casual about. He needs to keep working at it.
Well, Anna in Surrey begs to differ, and she's left this voice note. Can I apologise to all of you? Engineer Dave has been working for 27 hours. Because can I just tell you, I only listen to News UK radio stations. I'm not interested in BBC or Magic, or the radio stations I listen to are Talk, number one, Talk Sport, Times, Talk Sport 2, and Virgin. Those are the only radio. Anyway, so I put on a bit of Talk Sport at goodness knows 4 a.m. and I heard my engineer there moonlighting with Ben Ben Fletcher. And I feel quite clear. So that's why he forgot to press the button. But anyway, here is, he's working too hard, Anna in Surrey, who has strong views about Farage and a response to our conversation. Take a listen.
Good morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. Love your show. I don't want a wordsmith and I don't want rehearsed speeches. I want Nigel to say what he thinks about the subject at hand then and there. The day of wheeling James cleverly and whatever disaster Labour's planning to wheel out next, and with a rehearsed speech and we'll all vote, those days are gone.
Anna in Surrey, that's you told.
Great. Interesting.
And me.
Well, I would still say that Nigel Farage's best performances that I've ever seen were in those two TV debates. And I'm certain that he rehearsed so much that he sounded brilliantly spontaneous.
But Anna doesn't want great speeches. She doesn't want a rehearsed thing. She's quite happy with messy Nigel. Well, because it's real.
Unfortunately,
that's her point.
Unfortunately, messy Nigel has a downside. You know, when he's challenged on something where he doesn't actually know the answer, or he hasn't thought about the numerical consequences of a particular policy, he suddenly comes out with, "I've no idea," or "That's an irrelevant question." He gets a bit stroppy, which actually covers up the fact that he hasn't necessarily done his homework and his preparation before a given interview.
But I think what Anna would say, and Anna, I don't want to speak, you know, out of turn here. You're welcome to call and join the conversation, 0344 499 1000. But I think what Anna's saying in that voice note is that actually she's glad that Nigel's not like that, and that, yeah, maybe he does get a little shirty sometimes, and maybe he is quite off the cuff and quite authentic. And the danger for someone, I think, like Anna, is that if the spin doctors do get hold of him and turn him into a politician, well, that's going to be a problem in its own way.
Well, of course, you could have a Prime Minister who is quite unprepared, who shoots from the hip, who goes all over the place, and his name would be Boris Johnson. So I'm sure Nigel Farage doesn't want to plough that particular furrow.
So are you saying that you would, if you were responsible for Nigel, you were like his chief of staff or his chief spin doctor, would you be suggesting a change of approach?
No. I'd be suggesting a honing of approach. So, for instance, instead of, say, rocking up to an interview and just doing it without thought or without any preparation, meeting up with a coach or an individual about half an hour beforehand and working out the things, the golden nuggets that he'd really like to leave behind in that interview, and then doing it. Not pre-scripting them necessarily, but making sure that he's honed his legacy in advance so he definitely hits the points that he wants to hit.
But isn't there a danger that that will make him sound like a politician, and the attraction of Donald Trump in the United States and of Nigel Farage here is that, in a sense, they are not conventional politicians? We've had enough of them. We've had decades of them, and look at the state of the country.
My way of looking at it would be this: it wouldn't turn Nigel into an old-style, stilted politician. It would make Nigel more Nigel and have him get even more impact.
Well, I think, Dean, we'll take a call on this in a minute, shall we? But the first question I want to ask you is, Kieran, by the way, is on the phones today, a brand new recruit to the show. I had to fire the last person, who's just very, very lazy, and I'm joking, of course. Kieran's with us this morning. Give him a call. He's got a lovely sunny disposition, 0344 499 1000. Before we get to the break, what about the Tories then? Are they back? Because old Jeremy Clarkson, writing in The Sun today, has said, remember that old Tory party thing? It's talking sense again. Does Jeremy speak for millions?
Well, reports of the Tories' extinction have been greatly exaggerated. You have to remember the Conservative Party is the herpes of politics.
Careful.
They always come back.
Why were you looking at me when you said that?
They always...
I've lived a life.
Just when you think they've died off, they come back stronger than ever before.
I've been with some bad women. What are you going to do? I'm only human.
And the thing about the Conservative Party, also, you have to bear this in mind as well. Over the last 9 months, they have raised more money than all the other parties put together.
Yeah, I know. Why is that?
Because there is still a smaller but very vigorous, active membership. And it hasn't been big donors that have been putting the money in, although there have been a few. A lot of people have been putting in certain amounts of money because, of course, you can't have a credible political party without the finance available to run campaigns.
Yeah.
So, to a certain extent, they've never faded away. They've faded away in the polls, but what Kemi did in her speech was almost to go backwards to, indeed, Thatcherite views, the concept of people, of a country only living within their means, of encouraging business. And she had this delicious diagnosis contrast that she made in just a few words. While we were redefining what a woman was, China was building 5 nuclear reactors. And it's that situation that has to be remedied.
More front pages to come, plus your calls 0344 499 1000. Is Nigel Farage a natural, authentic politician with the answers to this country's problems, or is he a dangerous chancer? We'll debate that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Are the Tories back? Keith says, Mark, you're living in cloud cuckoo land, I'm afraid. There is no way the voters are going to forgive or forget what the Tories did over the last 14 years. Good morning, Mark, says Chris. Are the Tories back? No. It's only those old wrecks who screwed us up who think a few good words will do it. The Tories are finished. They did nothing for 14 years and blame COVID and Ukraine war on everything. Mass immigration not happening. Jack says, good morning, Mark. Nigel pushed his speech at conference forward due to the current affairs at the time, and even came back to close the conference with another speech and the national anthem. Where is the lack in that? Well, let's have a look at Nigel's Twitter, because, of course, it's always worth seeing what Nigel is tweeting about. And he's made, I've got to say, quite a few headlines with this particular post on X. The National Trust has put vegan tampons in men's toilets. God help us. There you go. If that's not an authentic response from potentially Britain's next Prime Minister, nothing is. So is Nigel the answer to Britain's problems, or is he a dangerous chancer? Michael's in Lancashire. Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Better for hearing you. What are you up to this morning so early? 6:34 a.m. What's happening, Michael?
I'm just driving home after a long week out in the truck. So,
My goodness. You're a hard-working man. Can I salute your efforts? What do you do? Are you a truck driver?
yeah, I'm an HGV driver. So I've been out all week and just should be home in the next 15 minutes, and then that's me done.
Well, listen, I salute the work you do. The sort of unsung heroes of the British economy are the HGV drivers. Nigel Farage, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
So, just with what you were saying regarding the orator that he is, and should he be refined or not, I think the reason Nigel is so popular and so supported is because he isn't refined. He speaks, to me, he speaks from the heart, and he means what he says, and he says what he means. And that's why people believe what he says. I mean, if you think about Keir Starmer, not so much Kemi Badenoch, but everyone along those lines, everything's so practiced and rehearsed. It's regurgitated garbage that's written by other people that have gone out and focus group tested everything that's been put into that speech to make sure it meets their ideology and their agenda. And you don't believe what they're saying because they don't believe what they're saying themselves. Whereas because Nigel literally speaks it there and then, it's not made up. You know, it's not thought about. It's literally what he's thinking of and what he's feeling at that moment. Pretty much like Donald Trump, just maybe quite not as erratic. But, you know, they say what they want to say because that's what they genuinely believe. And that's why I would only ever vote for Reform and Nigel Farage, regardless of what Conservatives come out with now.
So, Michael, you would say to Nigel, don't change a thing, actually. You're a natural, authentic politician. You can be a little messy, a bit off message, and that actually just adds to the charm, adds to the attraction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's just normal, isn't it? I mean, none of us are perfect at anything and everything. And, you know, you don't want that fake perfection. You just want natural and real, you know.
Well, the interesting thing, isn't it, would you suggest that to have a Donald Trump style of communication where he's making stuff up all the time and going off on a Donald meander, would that work for a British Prime Minister to have that as his communication style?
No, I mean, we're not quite there in this country the way Donald does. I mean, I listened to him when they went off to talk about, obviously, the peace deal that's going on in the Middle East, in the meeting that they had, I think it was yesterday. And, I mean, the guy just went off on everything. And that, I mean, I think that loses focus on what the real points are sometimes. And I think we're not ready for that yet.
Isn't this the problem potentially for Nigel? That let's say he does get to be Prime Minister, we do have, in some ways, a more challenging political system than the United States. When the president is elected president, he's invincible, unassailable, and he can't really be challenged. Whereas a British Prime Minister is challenged at least once a week in Prime Minister's Questions, doing a lot of media interviews and doing a lot of other spoken communication situations. Let me put this to you, that perhaps when he's Prime Minister, he might need to be 5 or 10% more prepared. Not saying 100% changed, but 5 or 10% more prepared would allow Nigel to be a more efficient Nigel without getting in the way of authenticity. What would you say to that?
I think when you say prepared, are you saying prepared speech? Or are we saying when he's going to PMQs on a Wednesday morning?
Yes.
Or Wednesday afternoon, is he prepared with all the facts and figures of the current issues that are going on at the moment?
Yes, I am, yes.
Or any, you know, I mean, well, that should be a given anyway.
It should be, but it's not one of his strengths at the moment.
I think, but he does know the facts and figures. When you go, maybe some of his policies at the moment, which, I mean, who really knows the facts and figures? Because they all come up with numbers, and then the budget responsibilities say one thing, and then they change everything 6 months later because, this didn't work the way it should have worked. So everything is a guesstimate anyway, to a certain extent.
It is, but they say, for instance, on a flagship policy like the immigration policy, which, after all, is the very front line of the battle line that reform has drawn, shouldn't he know the numbers really well on that particular issue?
Yes. I mean, what are we talking, because obviously I listen to a lot of that, are we talking about the financial numbers in regards to what the policy would say? Because I know, obviously, it's a very contested figure that. I know there was one figure put out which Nigel and the Reform Party used, and then there's another figure put out that's been revised because the OBR changed their stance on something. And then there's obviously the other figure put out by all the other parties just to diminish everything that's been said.
Well,
so
I absolutely get what you're saying there, that numbers aren't as precise as perhaps we would like them to be. But have you noticed that sometimes under pressure, Nigel has this habit, that when he's pressured on something, instead of actually thinking of a reasoned answer, he occasionally comes up with, I've no idea. And that's his way of dismissing it. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
And I
have.
And I would suspect that's probably, if he was Prime Minister, for him to be keeping saying, I've no idea, wouldn't quite be good enough. Isn't that a fair point?
Yeah, no, I would. If the thing is, if you are Prime Minister, you don't have the luxury of saying, I don't know the answer to that. Because you should know the answer to that as somebody in the highest position and power, in this land.
You're in danger of violently agreeing with each other.
You should really be in a position of absolute knowledge.
I think so.
But none of them really are. I mean, let's take a look at PMQs at the moment. I mean, is there really any point to PMQs?
Well, can I reveal this to you from a place of some inside knowledge? Prime Ministers in the past sometimes spend half a day, sometimes a whole day and a half preparing for Prime Minister's questions to make sure that they get things as efficiently correct as possible. Do you think Nigel would ever do that?
Would he do it? I'm sure he would.
Well, I mean, I don't think he should. I think that the guy is authentic, as you've said. And yes, he's got to get his facts right, and he's got to know what the immigration numbers are. He's got to know what inflation is and where interest rates are at. He's got to obviously have the facts at his disposal. But beyond that, Michael, I don't think we need another rehearsed, airbrushed politician.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, what I want is somebody like Nigel who understands what the problem is and actually does something rather than say they're going to do something. And unfortunately, I think in this country, whereas in America, Donald Trump says, I'm going to do this, bang, there's an executive order, I've done it. We can't do that in this country. And that's why we'll always struggle.
Michael, before you go, I think it's likely that Nigel Farage will win the next election. Is there a risk, a danger, that he'll let the country down, given the fact that what he's trying to do, the extraordinary political, economic and societal revolution that we need, is actually going to be very hard, if not impossible, to deliver?
Yes, because I think there's a real belief and a real hope that this is a last chance to really put the country back on track. Now, for me personally, the only way that Nigel and Reform can come in and make everything happen is if prior to the elections and prior to him winning, is that him and the team have absolutely every legal angle covered.
Yeah.
That they can walk into Downing Street, walk into Parliament on the Monday morning after the election, lay a massive blanket of policy on the table that is absolutely to the letter covering every angle that can, prevent the courts blocking what they want to do, and get that passed through within the first week or two. So then the policies that they want to implement will sail through because the courts won't be able to stop it. Because unless we do something like that, the courts are just going to block everything that they want to do at every angle, and then we'll be 4 years down the line, and actually, yeah, we potentially could be at the disappointment.
Michael, I really enjoyed your company this morning. Have a well-deserved break this weekend, and we'll catch up soon. Michael in Lancashire there, 03444991000. Good morning, Mark. Steve from Middlesbrough here. Just started listening. Seems that your guest is clutching at straws. Nigel cannot do any worse than what we've already got. How about this from Kev in Shropshire? Good morning, Mark. Tell your guest that... Your guest is expecting Farage to be a Prime Minister for 3 or 4 years from an election. What he needs to show now is a vision for the UK. When he's in Downing Street, he'll have the civil service providing the data. We want a vision, and a better vision than Starmer's Blair New Labour globalism. We want nationalism, UK, Britain and England first. Look after the country before everywhere else. How about this from Jen? Good morning, Mark. Just wondering if we can look forward to your... am I doing Weekend Breakfast regularly? Well, I'm definitely in for the next couple of weeks, Jen. So thank you for that. She said, love your shows, especially the Dolan Dispatch. Farage and Trump are the West's barrier to the Marxist ambitions of the fanatical left, says Mick. Lies and control in the UK. Biden's phone tapping and lies in the USA. France and Germany destroyed. Mass Antifa protesters are destroying our police and judicial system. Farage is the antidote. How about this? With so many messages coming in. Jane says, good morning, Mark. Nigel Farage is the only person to lead the country now after all the other two are finished. I mean, Starmer, nothing but a boring blob. Totally agree with your last caller, Michael. Well, let's continue this conversation. Is Nigel Farage the answer to Britain's problems, or a dangerous chancer? Your opinions next.
There's going to be a private ceremony for 1,000 guests in Manchester Cathedral, led by the Dean of Manchester, who calls Ricky an icon of this city. And then after the private service, the cortege will go on to the Etihad Arena, Manchester City's football ground, which is, you know, Ricky's beloved team. And you can see outside the gym here pictures of Ricky, flags as well, Manchester City shirts. People have written on them, thank you for the memories, R.I.P., sleep tight Ricky. So a very emotional day, but also a celebratory one for one of Manchester's favourite sons.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Nigel Farage the future for Britain, the answer to our problems, or a dangerous chancer? This is an unnamed texter who says, Mark, I live in York. Our MP lost the whip. She's so wishy-washy. Doesn't represent the people of York. The whole immigration issue is real, and she isn't showing what the people of York are thinking. We want no migrants living here. Nicola in Norfolk. Mark, with the greatest respect to your guest, it's his profession which is the cause of people's frustration with modern politicians who are trained to the hilt not to answer questions, but to keep hammering home the point that they want to make. More authenticity is required, not media-trained identikit politicians. Julie says, when Nigel says, I have no idea, I actually respect him for that. Instead of just sucking an answer out of his thumb to answer the question. I trust him more for saying, I don't know the answer to that. Why do you keep running Nigel down? How about this? There's strong feelings about this. Els Bells. Good morning, Els Bells. Good morning, Mark, she says. The reason Nigel is a true leader is because he's not rehearsing everything he says. He speaks truth to power. Graham Davis, you are talking utter rubbish. We're sick of the BS rehearsed stuff. Fall in line, Tosh. We want truth, honesty and hard facts. Clearly, Graham Davis just wants to continue with the status quo that got this country into the mess it is now. Move on, man. We are done with it. Mark, that geezer you've got sat with you needs to go. He's boring your listeners. Colin, get this Michael off. Oh, well, that's the support for you. Let's hear the thoughts of Big Chris in Epsom. Top of the morning, Chris. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. Nice to talk to you again.
Lovely to have you back on. Has Graham lost the plot here? Because many of my viewers and listeners are furious with his remarks about Farage.
I'm sure that Graham's a really nice human being, but if
Where's
I
the but?
was security and he got anywhere near him, I'd slot him.
I'd slot you back, mate. Now listen, why has Graham got this so wrong, Chris?
Well, because let's just look at it for a bit. The prime ministers we've had over the last 3 or 4 decades. When Margaret Thatcher came in, the country was on its knees. We had Red Ken, who bought everybody out at the drop of a hat in the motor industry. We had Scargill, who tried to take her on and slaughtered the coal mining industry. The fact is that she had a vision and she took the country with her. I'm 64. I was talking to my mates the other day, 2 of them. We've been mates for 50 years. We went to the same school, which was pretty much the comprehensive effort that the education system gave out. And we called it 5 years of containment rather than 5 years of education. We had a couple of good teachers, but most of them were terrible. Now, she took us along. If you remember, one of her, it's great to look at her YouTube stuff, and you can look this up. When her party wanted her to U-turn, she stood up in conference and said, U-turn if you want to, this lady's not for turning. You know, she had a vision of where she wanted to take us, and she got us there. Then Blair, he was another one that, he was a conviction politician, like Thatcher, but he had a hidden agenda. Now we've got these practiced, rehearsed, soundbite speeches written by other people.
Can I just point out that the U-turn, the lady's not for you. You can turn if you want to, but the lady's not for turning. That was a very carefully pre-scripted, pre-rehearsed line, supplied by somebody else, not by her.
Yes, but the difference is
that she said it well when it was given to her by somebody else.
It wasn't just that she said it well, she meant it.
Well, this is exactly right, Chris. She meant it.
She did, but of course you could get words supplied to you by someone else.
It doesn't matter.
But you can still mean them. Just because they've been supplied to you as an idea, you can adopt them as your own. She meant it when she said it, but nevertheless, it was created beforehand and it was rehearsed, and rehearsed brilliantly so that it sounded spontaneous in delivery.
Well, do you think, Chris, here's a question then. Do you think, because I've got to say that 99% of you just really appreciate how natural and authentic Nigel Farage is, and they do not want someone like Graham, who's a very skilled man, but they don't want his skills anywhere near Nigel or the Reform Project. But could he polish up his act a little bit, do you think?
No, I think the best answer for a question that you don't know the exact answer for is say, I don't know, I'll come back to you on it. Look at Starmer, the dispatch box. He gives out pre-written answers to questions, or he goes off on a tangent and doesn't answer. I've never seen him answer a bloody question. And the thing is, you know, when your Graham there talked about immigration numbers. Do you know the numbers, Graham?
Certainly not, no. But then again, I'm not the leader of a political party.
Well, neither am I. But when you look at it, all right, you had, when Theresa May was in office as Home Office Minister, she said in 2014 that we had 1.2 million overstayers. That was people that arrived on work visas, tourist visas, whatever, and had not left when their visa ran out. We've then got all the people that have been added by that hand-wringing, knicker-wetting liberal lump that called themselves Conservatives. That was another 3 million that came in, and now we've got Starmer letting them come across. Worse still, coming across on these dinghies, unvetted, unknown where they come from, fighting-age males. We now have something like over 100,000 in the country, and now instead of putting them, I'm sorry to say this, but this should be for the protection of the country. We should listen to Henry Bolton and Philip Ingram. They should be arrested and detained as they arrive, and they should be put in camps that can be built, wired camps on MOD ground. All right, with
what did you say? Wired camps? What do you mean with wire around them?
Yes, I mean with razor wire around it, with UN approved.
I'd electrify the fences as well. I don't know what you think about that.
No, you don't need to electrify.
So to concentrate the people together, you mean?
I'd use dogs. I'd have German Shepherd Alsatians as well. Can I ask you this, Big Ed? Sorry, no, you are actually Chris. Chris, this is from Big Ed in Thurrock, who says, "Good morning, Mark. I personally don't believe that Farage has this country's best interests at heart. I believe he's a selfish agitator who, for the sake of 5 MPs, split the Conservative vote and threw the country under the bus by delivering the country to Starmer and his lot. Ask the people of Clacton of how he's doing in his constituency. He's all about the Farage show and not fit to run a country. The real Tories won't vote Reform because we, I believe, see that he's part of the reason why we are where we are today." How do you react to that, Chris?
Well, unfortunately, there is a little truth in that, because when Nigel did the deal with the Tories and stood everybody down so that the Tories got in, all right, they then backtracked on all the promises that they made. So, yes, he was lied to, and he had one put over on him by them. And we will listen. Half of the MPs or more in the House of Commons still would like to be back in the EU, including the Tories. Now, the thing is, I hope, and what this is my hope for this country, is that Farage actually gets over 50% of the vote at the next election, and he gets enough people in there that he can push things through, because he's going to have his work cut out, because he's going to have to take on the blob, all right, and he's going to have to take on the judiciary and legal system that's been allowed to go so far left. It's ridiculous. We haven't got judges anymore. We've got activist judges.
Well, I agree with you. Chris, I wish we had longer, but will you call me again soon? 0344 499 1000. You speak for 99% of the viewers and listeners to Talk Breakfast this morning. Good morning, Mark. Says Neil, your guest says that Nigel Farage sometimes says "I don't know" when asked a question, but that doesn't mean he won't bother finding it out. It's better than constantly beating around the bush and saying 14 years ad nauseam. The people have had enough of these career politicians. We deserve better. Here's my point to you, my question to you, Graham. With Nigel Farage, you're trying to fix something that ain't broke.
Sometimes it could be better. I'm not suggesting he's broken. At the moment, with only 6 MPs, he's an insurgent, he's a rebel. But actually, he does have a vision, as mentioned by one of your callers. He does have a vision, but as you're changing from the rebel into the ruler, you need to make the vision change from just being a flashbang spotlight into a laser beam. I'm just suggesting he could be sharper.
Next up, tomorrow's front pages and shock news statistics on illegal immigration. Folks, we are being had. And are Harry and Meghan humanitarians? Make it make sense. My thanks to the brilliant Graham Davies. Come back and see us soon. Don't go anywhere. This is Talk Breakfast.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, top of the morning to you. It is at 3 minutes past 7. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan. A very big 3 hours to come. Following a better-than-expected party conference, are the Tories back? Jeremy Clarkson, writing in today's Sun newspaper, has said the Conservatives are talking sense again. But can you forgive them for 14 years of failure and 14 years of betrayal? We'll be joined live in the studio by a staunch Reform UK supporter who's left Nigel Farage's project and has rejoined the Conservative Party. She tells her story shortly. 2.5 million people are on the fat jabs, but do they work? And is this the answer to Britain's obesity crisis? I'll be asking comedy legend Christopher Biggins, who's on the fat jabs himself. Plus, is Meghan Markle plotting a return to the UK? And are Harry and Meghan really humanitarians? Do me a favour. And the migrants found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage is to be sentenced next week. But will he get as long as Lucy Connolly? I won't hold my breath. Plus, the boxing legend Ricky Hatton remembered. And this is not a drill. The monologue is back. That's right, in just 1 hour's time. In today's Dolan's Dispatch, the bad orange man strikes again. Donald Trump manages to precipitate a peace deal in the Middle East. And I'll be comparing the bold, courageous leadership of Donald Trump in the United States and the tired, grey effort from Britain's Sir Keir Starmer. The contrast couldn't be stronger. So I'll be dealing with RPM, Sir Keir Starmer, in no uncertain terms in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 8 a.m. I'm not pulling my punches. I might get cancelled. Good. But no one gets cancelled on my watch. I want to know your opinions. That's what the priority is for the next 3 hours. Getting your views on the radio and on TV. 0344 499 1000. You can hear us in-app, online and via DAB+. And you can watch us by searching Talk on YouTube. And I've got to say, we had quite a busy first hour and we've sparked a debate because my last guest has effectively accused Nigel Farage of being a dangerous, unprepared chancer. Is that fair? Is there now an agenda against Nigel Farage? Let me know your thoughts about this. Is he unprepared for power, or do you love his authenticity? 0344 499 1000. We've got a full switchboard. We'll get to that shortly. But first up, for the big stories of the day, let's get reaction from Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Mike, top of the morning to you.
Yes, hello, Mark.
Listen, so many stories to get through.
Yeah.
But can we talk about the madness of the Taliban, who have been selling fake death threats for £40 a pop for asylum seekers seeking to dupe the UK? Tell me more.
Well, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? So this scheme, it's like £40, or you can pay more if you want an official stamp. Now, having been in places like Iraq, I know that the stamp there is like the big deal. If you have the bigger your stamp, the more important you are. But the ridiculous thing is, about 100,000 people applied for this, and they're coming to this country. They're taking over barracks and the like, which then deprives the use of those to our reserve forces and the like. And my question is how many people did actually help us in Afghanistan? Yes, we had some interpreters and some people who fought in the forces there, but it would seem to be 100,000. We didn't have 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. We haven't got 100,000 troops in the army today. And the problem with all this is, number one, why didn't we broker a deal with a friendly nation nearby that they could go and live in a culture that would suit their needs? Because they come into an alien culture here, and we also know that if we bring these people over, they're Afghans are 20 times more likely to commit sexual offences than British-born people. Yeah. And so there's all this threat of violence against women and girls. I had to speak to my young daughters down in Bournemouth about be careful about these strange men. These are the impacts it has on real people. But I think what it shows is that the Taliban and everybody else knows that we're complete mugs. We are complete mugs in this country. If you bring a silly letter with a stamp on it, it must be true. There's no checking. People just assume. Somebody says they're 16 when they're obviously 30. They believe it. And they're just laughing at us. And the whole system is, I think, taking the mickey out of the population who want this sorted out. Because I will say this, the government, they have a dream. Their dream is a multicultural society. It's a religion. It's a cult. And nothing will stop them having this. They're determined to have it, no matter how many people put up flags or demand some difference about this. And this is all part of it. And these countries just know that they can just laugh at us. And not only that, how many dangerous people are now in this country because we can't be bothered to check, or the officials don't want to check these documents, which would be proved to be fake with any superficial test, I would imagine.
Is the idea of asylum outdated? Because if you think about, you know, how it was developed, you know, after the First and Second World War, and when people were genuinely fleeing tyranny, do we need to have a look at it? Because Denmark had their kind of Farage moment 15 years ago, in which they unilaterally stopped not just illegal but legal immigration as well. I think they processed less than 100 asylum claims last year. Does Britain need to go in that direction?
Absolutely. I mean, what struck me, the most awful place I've ever been, dreadful place. I was in the former East Germany, and I went with the help of the police in Germany, and they took me to the former Stasi prison, which was the East German secret police. And in there, they had all these awful photographs where people had made every effort to escape from East Germany. Small secret submarines, hiding in the car, all sorts of weird and ingenious ways to flee a wicked, repressive regime. Now, the asylum laws were really made up so we could help that one or two people who managed to escape from such evil regimes. Now you've got people who come here with the most spurious of reasons, having fled from France, where they're obviously safe. I mean, many people of my age will remember the railway children, and a bloke flees from Russia. You know, he's gone all the way across Europe. That took a massive effort, didn't it, in the early, 20th century to get all the way from Russia to England. Now you can get on an EasyJet flight or a boat across the Channel. And I think the public are just really tired of it, and there's a real clash between the establishment and the people out there. What the establishment are worried about, they have their dream, multicultural society,
which isn't working.
But they also want to stay in power, so they've got this clash where they need all the votes, but then they need to please what they're doing. And I think the big thing for me is Starmer when he says about smashing the gangs. This shows his mindset. In his head, the gang leaders are villains. The people on the boats, they're victims, you see, who deserve it. And that shows the mentality of the government. The people on the boat are not bad. Entering this country illegally is a crime, but they're not criminals. They are victims. We must smash that. It's a smokescreen for carrying on what we've got.
Well, asylum should be a very positive thing where we help people who are fleeing tyranny, and that's what we've always done as a country.
Exactly.
And many of those people have gone on to make a huge contribution to British society and to British life. But the word asylum is now a four-letter word for many people because it's been abused.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely abused, and people can see this time and time again, but the government will tell us, oh no, it's all a good thing, we should help these. And then you've got these useful idiots who are paid £40 to go and stand with their socialist worker sign saying, refugees, welcome here. And there doesn't seem to be that many of them, because I think it's the same faces who travel around the country everywhere you go, and it's the same people holding those plaques out. They're the same people. Whereas the people who are stood at the hotels are genuinely local individuals who are really concerned, and just like me, as I said, when I had to speak to my 11 and 14-year-old daughters about the dangers of strange men in Bournemouth, people are just sick and tired of this.
Do you live in Bournemouth?
No, my daughters live down there.
They do. And can you give us an overview of what's happened to Bournemouth? Because it used to be a sunny seaside town. Yeah. It was the main destination, Brighton, Bournemouth, Blackpool. This is where Brits went on holiday before the 1960s, before sort of the cheap package holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And you had top-level five-star hotels, amazing entertainment, amusements, fish and chips, right? A real British scene of idyll and nostalgia. So what's happened to Bournemouth?
There are now 3 of the main hotels have been taken over by asylum seekers.
And these will be like flagship hotels that at one point were sort of a luxury accommodation for holidaying Brits.
Absolutely. Even me from Manchester, there's a direct train from Manchester to Bournemouth for all these. It's got so bad there. There's a volunteer. There's now the safeguard force down there. Local volunteers who are going out and patrolling and making sure that people are safe. So people are taking matters into their own hands. They're doing a professional job of helping people keep safe. But where have we come to when Bournemouth has to have volunteer patrols to keep people safe? That's how bad it's got.
Yes, and there's hundreds of men, predominantly, staying in these hotels. And they are free to roam. They have a little pocket money. They have a mobile phone, 3 meals a day, dentistry, all the rest of it. I mean, why these folks aren't detained, I cannot compute. I cannot process that if you enter the country illegally, you don't go to jail.
Absolutely. Or you don't go to some camp. And most of these camps...
Well, as long as it's got barbed wire.
Secure.
And I'm not even saying that these people are necessarily bad people, right? But because
we don't know.
We don't know. I'm not a bad person, but if I break the law, I'll be detained. And if you enter the country illegally, that's exactly what you've done.
And if I was fleeing war, if I was... Well, firstly, I was a soldier, so I wouldn't be fleeing war without my wife and children and my mother and whoever else. So in a sense, they're cowards. Whoever they are, they must be cowards, these characters who come here. But if they go to the camps, I was a soldier. There's soldiers in substandard accommodation now, and we're being told by lefty lawyers that it's not good enough for an asylum seeker. Well, if you were fleeing war, you'd be quite happy with a bed and a square meal every day. So, yeah, I think the public are being laughed at by the establishment, in my view.
Powerful stuff. Well, next up, Southport killer Axel Radicabana brought a knife to his previous school on 10 occasions. What is going on? Was this not flagged up because of cultural sensibilities? Better not mention that this lad's got a machete because he's from a diverse community. We're going to discuss that. And also, my previous guest has suggested that Nigel Farage is a dangerous chancer. Is that true? We'll get to your calls and opinions on that next.
The way to deal with it is quite simply to detain every single illegal immigrant securely behind wire until such time as we can return them to whence they came or they ask to go back. Now, that does require significant legal changes, but this government doesn't seem to want to be fair, neither did the previous, want to take those legal, do that legal amendment, withdraw from the ECHR and so on. They didn't want to do it. It was all too contentious for them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Nigel Farage a dangerous chancer? That's the view of my previous guest. I'll get to your calls and messages on that in just a moment. But with me in the studio, retired Scotland Yard detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Mike, what's this about Axel Radicobana, of course the man responsible for the Southport triple murder? What do we know about his past?
Well, what we know is that there's an inquiry at the moment into these dreadful murders at the Liverpool Town Hall, and it's been revealed that on 10 occasions he was found with a knife at school, and all sorts of other incidents where he was asked to, you know, he's looking for pictures of severed heads and American shootings and this sort of thing. What concerns me all the time with these sort of cases and these referrals is how many times he wasn't referred. And how many times did somebody feel, oh, if I do say anything, people will think I'm racist? And the worst time, of course, this is the most wicked murder, I think, in this country, to be honest, but if you think of the Manchester Arena attack, where the young security guard saw a baby with a rucksack, Asian man, rucksack in a place he just didn't fit in. He was afraid to say anything because he would be called racist. We have made calling people racist in this country the worst crime ever. And as a result, people are in absolute fear. And time again, we come across things where something might have been different if the person who'd done it previously was white, and people would have felt confident to say this person's really, really odd, they're doing a mad thing here, they've got knives, they're saying awful things. And the authorities are just really, anybody who works for the police or social services or anything like that, they're just so afraid that they could make the wrong call, and as a result, they get put on a discipline procedure or they lose their jobs. And the net result is the public are put at risk because what has been done here. And it's all part of what I was saying previously. There is a cult. The establishment want a multicultural society, and they will enforce it by whatever wicked means they need to do.
Most definitely, and that's why they got rid of stop and search. Political correctness is provably making us less safe.
Absolutely.
And it's got to go, and nothing is racist. Only racist things are racist, but if someone's got a machete, you're allowed to call it out without being a bad person. My previous guest suggested that Nigel Farage is a dangerous chancer who needs a bit of coaching in political communication. A strong reaction online. Oh, Mark, why did you ask Graham his opinion on the conferences? He's obviously a Tory wannabe. Here's an idea. Let's see what good can come for the country rather than the leader. Graham has failed to address anything other than his personality. How about this from Eleanor? Good morning, Mark. Farage is the only person that can save the country. I'm 78 and all my voting life I've been a Tory. I will be voting reform from now on. And Starmer is a clown. Did you see him in the cockpit of the plane going to India? What a joke, trying to be like Trump. The difference being Starmer is reading from a postscript. Love the show. Thank you for that. Eleanor? How much worse could Nigel Farage be than Starmer and his pals, says David. And Mick, the people are sick of the SPAD advisor industry of lies and manipulation. We need authenticity, truth and democracy. Most of the media rent-a-gobs are only employed to satisfy the requirements of Ofcom. And finally, John in Wallington says, Mark, nothing is going to stop the turquoise tsunami. Of course, that's the colour of Reform UK. We're witnessing a political revolution. The Tories and Labour are desperately trying to hang on to Reform's UK coattails. How about this from Matthew in Cheshire? Matthew, what do you think?
Good morning, gents.
Top of the morning, Matthew. Great to have you on the show. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Is Nigel Farage a dangerous chancer that needs lessons in communication?
No, he's not. He's a breath of fresh air. But it's not. It's bigger than Nigel Farage. It's the Reform Party. People are looking at the Reform Party because the people behind Nigel Farage, the working people, the businessmen, the people who've got their hands dirty, and the Tory Party, the Labour Party, they're all career politicians. They've never got out and got knee deep in mud, or been on a building site, or been in a boardroom where there's budgets talked and there's got to make people. They go to university, they get the little degree in politics, and then they go off and they go and do a bit of running around Westminster as a young runner, and they tell people what they think, and other politicians, and they don't know what it's like in the real world. You know, I suppose the police are the same now, where a lot of senior officers and have not been proper coppers.
Yeah.
They're not proper politicians. And this is what you're getting with Reform now. You're getting people who've been there. They've been a magistrate. They've been You know, they've been a lawyer, they've been a CEO of a big national company, and that's what we're all crying out for now, because everyone's had enough of the BS that these politicians, all these politicians, they all pee in the same pot, just from different sides. And we've had enough as a nation. You can just see it. You can see the flags everywhere. You can see people standing up, and they're trying to stand us down now because they don't want you to stand out, because they don't want the news. The worst thing that ever happens to the politicians is social media, because people are seeing a lot of it and making their own decisions now. We're not getting, I've stopped watching BBC News and ITV. The only thing I listen to is you guys, because you're getting told the truth.
Well, I've got to say that when the red light comes on, I say what I think, Matthew, which I'll be doing at 8 o'clock with my Dolan's dispatch. I'd love you to hear it. I'd love your thoughts on it, because I'm going to be comparing the leadership of Donald Trump, who's just brokered peace in the Middle East, compared to Starmer, who I believe is presiding over the rapid decline of this country. Stay with us, Matthew. I've got a voice note from Jack on the issue of Farage. Does he need media training? Should he be more polished? Is he a dangerous chancer?
Good morning, Mark. As long as Farage sticks to what he's doing, there's not really going to be a problem. Starmer seems to be, for lack of a better word, digging his way to China as it is, and his party are following him into the pits. So it's not going to be long before Farage takes the helm.
Mike Neville, what do you think about Nigel Farage? Is he the finished article? Does he need media training?
I think people just want authenticity these days. They're sick and tired of media training, all the Blair hand movements and all this sort of rubbish. And as has been described, I think what really happened, as long as Nigel Farage and the Reform Party carry on as they're doing, just leave what you might call the uni party to get on with it. Because as the previous caller said, they're all the same. So people just see Labour and Tories have had a nice little result, really. One takes over, then the next one has a go.
Cosy.
And the real big thing for me is, if I was in Reform, the law I would pass is you're not allowed to become an MP unless you've worked outside politics for 10 years.
Wow.
These people who go, as has been said, nice school, PPE exam degree at Oxbridge, special advisor, running around Westminster, as you say, then they get given a hard seat to fight. If you're a Tory, you get Hull East. If you're Labour, you get Tunbridge Wells. And if you do all right with that, you get given a safe seat. And these people have never been in the real world. They should be banned. We need people in politics who have been farmers, nurses, doctors, soldiers, businessmen. We need people with real-world experience who bring that to the table. Look at people like Winston Churchill, who was fighting in the army, then he was a journalist, and he did all these different... that's what we need. In Mrs Thatcher's cabinet, there was 3 men who'd won the Military Cross. So not only they made difficult decisions, they'd made it when people were trying to kill them. So these are fantastic people. These are the sort of individuals we need in Parliament. We don't need any more of these chancers, and also the likes of the Kinnock dynasty. Get rid of that sort of nonsense as well.
Most definitely. Angie is in Plymouth. Morning, Angie.
Morning, Mark, again. Sorry to bother you, but I don't know if Mike remembers me, but I've got 6 grown-up children. My youngest is severely autistic, and we got a knock at the door because he's got although he's 34, he's got a mental age of a 10-year-old. And Mike was very, very helpful to us to get them to drop any charges against him, because he said some unsavoury things, probably because he listening to me, about Keir Starmer. I don't know if Mike remembers that.
Yeah, so we're on with Kevin O'Sullivan together.
That's right, Mike, yes. So the reason I want to phone is I haven't been able to phone because I've been so angry about everything that's been going on recently, and my husband let me go on because I'll probably be banned for life if I ever speak to talk again. But the reason I wanted to phone not while Mike was on is about Prevent and this incident with Stockport, because although I live in Plymouth, the last 8 years of my career, I was a teacher and a head of year in a school in London, and we had what we call an inset where we have people come in to sort of train us, and we had a visit from Prevent, and the very first thing that Prevent said when they said any of you here who think that the biggest threat to national security is from Islam terrorists, you are misinformed. The biggest threat to a national security is far-right extremism. That is exactly what they said. So I actually happen to have, and obviously I can't, for obvious reasons, can't say too much, but I'm very close friends with a wife of somebody who works for the counter-terrorism people. And I know for a fact that's not true. So I stood up and said, I'm very sorry, that's not true. The biggest threat is from Islam terrorism. And there was a sort of bit of a tumbleweed moment. And then the very next morning, I was hauled up and got slapped wrists and a threat of disciplinary, blah, blah, blah. So this is my biggest concern. And I'm now volunteered to stand as a councillor for reform. I'm a member of reform in Plymouth because I'm so concerned about what's going on in education. Now, the trouble is, we've really got to go back to basics here because our children are no longer being educated, they are being indoctrinated. And they're being indoctrinated. And when you've got teachers being told this, I mean, I was long in the tooth, I'm a mother of 6, a granny of 8, and I was coming close to retirement. So I knew what I was being told was wrong. But we've got young, intelligent teachers becoming, and this is being taught to them to then pass on to the children. This is so scary.
It really is. Angie, you're so right to flag this up, and it's a big, big problem for the country, isn't it, Mike?
It is absolutely a big, big problem for the country because, as has been said by Angie, that if the teachers are told this, they're young and naive, they're from a nice place in the country, they don't seem, they're happy to believe this. And we've had this pumped out by people like Neil Basu, who had a lot of time for his ex-retired assistant commissioner in the police. Oh, the far-right threat. People know what the real threat in this country is. We had the Shawcross review of Prevent, and he told them, you cannot keep focusing on the wrong things. You've got to focus on Islamic terrorism. But they don't want to focus on that because it doesn't fit the agenda. But the trouble is with the agenda, it doesn't fit in with real life, and this focus and trying to smear over and cover up what the real problems are, it just leaves us all at risk, and we see it time and time again.
That's right. You're trying to tell the public that a man is a woman. You're trying to tell the public that open borders are really good for society and great for the economy, and you're trying to tell the public that Islam is an entirely peace-loving religion and that the far right are the threat to our safety. Who are the far right? I don't think there is a far right in this country.
Who are they? Well, it's everybody.
Well, you're an ex-cop.
It's everybody.
Where is the far? How big is the far right?
I mean, what summed it up to me, I remember when Labour came into power, Jack Straw, they said, we used to have targets, or catch the most burglars, catch the most robbers.
Those were the days.
They were the good. And then they came, we must catch the racists. So we had to find, and I was in charge of the intelligence unit at Brixton, and we had to find a racist, but the only guy we could find was a guy who stood outside the Brixton tube station, who was a Muslim bloke shouting hate about Jewish people. So because what they wanted us to find was a skinhead who was doing some evil things and picking on people, but we couldn't find that individual. But it's a smokescreen. You've got to imagine, and I always keep saying this: the establishment want a certain thing, and they'll ram it through, and they'll try and smear and lie anybody who lie about anybody who tries to say that's wrong.
Most definitely. How about this message on Farage from David? Good morning, Mark. Love the show. My weekend has started now. Thank you, David. Reform UK is the only party that can change this country's fortunes and bring the country back. And I see being in power longer than the Conservatives, because the people will never forget what the other two parties have done to this country. But we know that Labour will do everything in its power to destroy it on the way out. What are your thoughts about the Reform UK project? Can they tackle law and order in this country? Can they tackle wokery in our public institutions? Can they fix Britain?
It's going to be very, very difficult. I think the will is the first thing. You need the will. We've discussed this before about money and will. But the first, tonight, you can have all the money in the world. If you've not got the will to do something, you'll never succeed. So I think the first thing is there is a will to do things. So a lot of ordinary people are standing for reform, and they really do want to fix things like law and order. The big thing they'll have is the awful, like Donald Trump calls it, the swamp. The civil service. I saw it in the police. I was trying to introduce new technology to catch more criminals. There's lazy people who work in the IT department in the public sector are just happy to squash things so they don't have to do any work. But worse than that, there are people who are absolutely dedicated to this left liberal project who have infested the civil service. So the more you can have the best Home Secretary in the world, but if all the civil servants in the Home Office think that borders should be open, think that everybody should have asylum, it's going to be very hard. It's almost like you need to sack the lot and start again.
Well, listen, we won't be sacking you, Mike, because we love having you on the show. Do come back and see us again soon. My thanks to retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Next up, you're going to love this, folks. Are Harry and Meghan really humanitarians of the year? And is Meghan Markle plotting a bold return to the UK? We'll debate that next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk Breakfast. Are Harry and Meghan humanitarians, and is Meghan Markle plotting a bold return to the UK? Let's get the views of the brilliant journalist and broadcaster, Linda Jubilee. Good morning, Linda.
Morning, Mark.
What's Meghan Markle up to? Is she plotting a bold return to the UK?
It wouldn't surprise me if she did return. I don't know how bold it would be, and I don't know about the element of plotting, but it wouldn't surprise me if she did return. She is a very, very determined and ambitious young, well, not so young now, but she has always applied herself to her work. And I think that's something that perhaps the royal family underestimated when she married into the firm. She has made no secret of her ambitions for decades. In fact, she showed a considerable amount of application when she, I believe, wrote to a multinational company when she was only a young teenager on the subject of women's rights. So I think we can hardly be surprised if Meghan has successfully built a platform for herself in the US and actually wants to return to the UK for many reasons, personal and professional.
Most definitely. Are Harry and Meghan really humanitarians of the year? Tell us about this award.
I think this is a well-recognised award. I think they've won other awards too. It's not that I want to sort of big them up every 5 minutes, but I think that the press has been a little bit unfair to Meghan. Just because she's ambitious, she was, after all, I believe, the first self-made millionaire to enter the royal family. Just because she is a very hard-working individual doesn't mean to say that she doesn't achieve stuff. She does achieve stuff, and she's been doing it for years. One of the reasons she was attracted to Prince Harry was because of his conservation work and some of his humanitarian work, because it matched her own ambitions. I mean, I think, seriously, my personal view is she did let the royal family down by leaving. She should have given the whole thing a lot more thought before she entered into the marriage. But what's done is done.
Was it all a master plan in the first place? Do you think she was ever serious about being a long-term frontline serving royal?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to remember that in America, she is a lot more popular than she is here. And that's just, I'm just digressing there, but she always has a plan. I mean, of course, this is a woman who gets up at 5:30 in the morning to do her sun salutations. People who do that kind of activity plan their lives out properly. That's and actually, while I mention that, you know, she became a bit unpopular with the royal household, maybe courtiers, because, you know, over in that comms department, they might not be at their desks until 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, they don't want to read emails that have been sent to them 3 hours earlier, and they whinged. And the trouble is that the palace, like the Palace of Westminster, Peter Madison once said this, it's not so much leaks, but continual seepage. And it was impossible for her to stay in control of her narrative. But I do believe that a very big part of the appeal with Harry was his platform, which she thought she could link to her platform. The problem is, to an American, Diana had 2 sons. She had William, she had Harry. They were both celebrities. In fact, in America, it's possible Harry's profile was higher than William's. She thought when she came over here, she would be treated as an equal to the Princess of Wales, for example. You remember all those pictures of the Fabulous Four. There were 4 of them. They were all equals. But of course, it became very obvious, as several authors have written about, that it's the bloodline that really counts. The late Queen, King Charles, Prince William, George. Every time William had another child, Harry, and therefore Meghan, was pushed further and further to one side. And I think it is that is behind her departure to America. I do think that the press were very, very intrusive, but that is only a component part of this. And what they do need to do, both Harry and Meghan, is stop hiding behind that fact.
Most definitely. I think Michael speaks for many, Linda, when he says, Mark, we've had enough grifters in the government without Meghan and Harry returning. There is not a deep well of goodwill. Linda, while I've got you, you are an expert as well on political communication, and we sparked a big debate this morning. My previous guest suggested that Nigel Farage needs media training, that he's a bit thin-skinned, right, and he doesn't like difficult questions, and that he's potentially a dangerous chancer. Now, Deborah is not happy in Essex. She says, hello, Mark, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's unfair to berate a party that's clearly doing its best to support Britain and its people. Their rise from the ground up has been nothing short of remarkable, gaining more public support than any other party. If they're truly as bad as some claim, why is the Uniparty adopting their policies? Don't sabotage the efforts of patriots who genuinely want help. Lots of my viewers and listeners love Nigel Farage. They're invested in him. They think that he'll change the country for the better, and they don't want him to be airbrushed and have speeches written for him and posh suits purchased. So what do you think about that?
I have met very few politicians who can exert as much presence when they make a speech as Nigel Farage. I cannot think of a politician who needs media training less than him. He is a remarkable communicator, and that's at the heart of media training. As you say, I've done a lot of media training in my lifetime, and I've done some of it for MPs. And that is the problem. It's media training done badly that's the problem, because it sucks the personality out of people, politicians and others. The fact of the matter is that the key to communication is exerting your character, your beliefs, your vision. We look at, for example, Sir Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch this week, who both did proficient, well-structured speeches. They did enough to keep their parties happy, but to my mind, both of those people needed a little bit of soul in their speeches, and that comes from their personality.
Most definitely. Is there anything Nigel needs to do, or is it a case of don't fix it if it ain't broke?
Well, in terms of communications, don't fix it if it ain't broke is absolutely the golden rule here. I think really the kind of work that he needs to do centres really along process and structure and building a party machine that will work and that is not entirely dependent on one person. If anything, he should have a succession plan. He needs to treat this as a big strategic piece of work that needs to be accomplished over the next 2 to 3 years, quite a long time before we start campaigning for the next general election.
Linda, we always love having you on the show. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to the brilliant journalist and commentator Linda Jubilee. Next up, the Reform UK supporter who's just defected to the Conservatives. You heard me right. We'll discuss that next.
Trump is quite possibly the greatest man to ever walk this earth. Nobody, right, love him or loathe him, the orange man, baby, nobody has got near to achieving peace in the Middle East. Now, so the cynics will say, oh, you're wrong, he's a nightmare, he's a disgrace. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a politician in this country who actually stood in front of the British people and went, this is a problem, that's a problem, you're concerned about this, I know you're worried about that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sophie Corcoran is a very impassioned political activist and broadcaster, and she was a very vocal supporter of Reform UK, but she's just defected to the Tories. You heard me right. Sophie Corcoran, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's not the direction of travel, is it? Because most people seem to be leaving the Conservatives and joining Reform. So why are you going the other way?
Well, I think it's because to be honest, I was actually really surprised myself. I thought that this Tory party conference was going to be an absolute disaster. And I think what you read from some of the press commentators, they sort of paint it as it was. And I don't think they've really given it a fair reputation. I think that some of the policies the Conservatives put out are absolutely fantastic. And look, I'm a young person, and the most important thing for me, Mark, is to cut welfare. And the Conservatives are doing that. They're cutting, I think, 23 billion of excess welfare funding. They're cutting 7 billion of foreign aid. They are stopping foreign nationals from having social housing, which is really, really important for young people, because we've got ourselves a situation in this country for young people where essentially we're having to go to work and work hard to pay tax for, you know, foreign people to have free homes when we can't afford to move out of our parents' houses. We're having to pay taxes for the things like the mobility scheme where people with ADHD are getting free BMWs when we can't afford new cars ourselves. And this is the big divide between the Tory party and Reform, is that we're having to go to work to pay taxes, potentially, if they remove the 2-child benefit cap, for other people to have multiple children that they can't afford, when people my age can't afford to start a family of our own when we really want one. So what's happening at the moment in Britain essentially is that young people are having to go to work, pay hard, work hard to pay taxes, for those taxes to then be used to pay for somebody else to have a better life than what we could ever afford ourselves. And that just goes against the very basic ideas of principle, of fairness, of hard work, of aspiration, and that's what I think the Conservative Party stands for. And the Conservative Party are the only party at the moment that are actually tough on welfare. Reform have supported removing the 2-child benefit cap. Labour, again, are talking about it quite a lot, and I think they're actually going to do it. So really the Conservatives are the only ones to trust on welfare.
Well, the thing is, the Conservatives might be making the right noises, but so many of my viewers and listeners just won't trust them again, following net zero, following the illiberal COVID lockdowns, and following the open borders experiment of Boris Johnson and the so-called Boris wave. Isn't there an old saying that if you've got a problem, the worst person to fix it is the person that caused the problem originally?
Well, potentially, yes, but I think that when we talk about other parties, obviously I think Labour are dead in the water, and Reform, they're fortunate enough that they actually haven't been in government yet, so they can say a lot and promise a lot and not at the moment have to do a lot. But if we look at where they are in power, and they've only been there for such a short amount of time, is in the sort of local authorities. And they went into the local elections promising this brand new Doge scheme, and they were going to cut all of this excess spending, and in the same way either cut council tax or at least keep council tax low. And at least 8 Reform councils are now saying that they're going to have to raise council tax, especially in the likes of Kent, where this Doge scheme was sort of the trailblazer, where it was sort of trialled out. They're having to potentially raise council tax by the maximum. So
well, that's not their fault. They've just got inherited an almighty mess.
Well, the problem is that they knew that they was going to inherit a mess, and that they shouldn't have made promises that they couldn't deliver. And the fact is that they've only been in power for a short amount of time and already made repeated promises they can't deliver on. So in that respect, they're no better than the Tories. If they can't deliver in local government, they're not going to do very well at delivering in national government, because it is significantly harder.
Lisa has said, good morning, Mark. I can't wait for Nigel to get into power. UK-style Trump is what we need. That is actually the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch, by the way. Starmer has only his own global agenda with no interest in our country. Get him out before he ruins the UK. Leon is not happy with you, Sophie, but we know you've got a thick skin. That's me unfollowing Sophie. Anyone stupid enough to leave reform for the Tories after the way they've ruined this country is not worth listening to anymore, although he does say good luck, Sophie. Mark, Tim in Suffolk, although Sophie's comments are valid, they are only policy. And isn't that the thing? That Reform UK really believe what they say. And they are going to, for example, scrap indefinite leave to remain for the Boris wave, something the Tories won't do.
Well, the problem is how are they going to do it? Reform are very light on detail, and the Conservatives come out and have pledged significant policy, and we've waited a year for it. They've definitely taken their time, and I do think that was probably not the best idea.
But will they do it? I mean, Kemi might believe this stuff, but will the party let her do these things, given that when she's back in the House of Commons after the next election, if she was lucky enough to have a majority, they'll all be closet Liberal Democrats?
No, I don't think they will, and that's one of the big turning points for me, is that she said that anybody that wouldn't back her leaving the ECHR wasn't to stand as an MP, and that's something the Tory party has really struggled with in the past, in the sense that they've got these closet Lib Dems and they've got what I would call the real Tories, and they've the closet Lib Dems have almost tried to sabotage the other ones, whereas she's very unequivocal that if you don't agree with what I'm going to do in government, then you are to not stand as an MP, which means I think the Conservative Party is going to be far more united. Reform's kind of taking a blend of sort of everybody, and you can see that being reflected in their policies. They're clearly trying to go after your sort of red wall Labour voter in some of their sort of welfare policies. So they almost don't have a clear identity either, and they don't have any detail in their policy, and I think the Conservatives actually have a far better chance of implementing what they're going to do than Reform do.
Tony's in Southampton. Tony, what do you make of Sophie's journey from Reform UK over to the Tories?
I mean, a lot of what she said is right, but Tories don't go anywhere near far enough, because they still got the tree as their logo instead of the lion. They still want us to have a heat pump. They want solar panels. They want an electric car. And they basically want me to spend about £70,000 to £80,000 on my home. You know, I mean, the reality is it's a movement. I mean, the Tories have still got the tree logo. Reform is about reforming the Doge, the whole money-saving aspect. I mean, we've got people working hard week in the supermarket, and they're still on universal credit. You've got to get those people, their pay lifted, get them out of universal credit. We've got to totally reform every part of policy. And we can't just say, oh, well, we're still going to keep net zero. When we're going to put £1 million worth of solar panels on every school, because the money doesn't come from, it's borrowed money. And that's, Nigel, I mean, the whole party system, it's a ideology, not a person. If Nigel got run over by a bus, we have to continue with the reform of Doge, cutting costs, shrinking the blob. It's not just, we can't just continue as we are. I mean, people like me will never go back to voting for the two-party system as it is, where Jeremy Hunt marches against a gas well in his own constituency.
You raise a good point. I mean, the issue is, Sophie, I've known you for many years. I admire you greatly. You are a true Conservative to your core. The issue is the Tories aren't.
Well, to be fair, the Tories in the past aren't.
The DNA
but
of
I think
the party
they're going
now
to. Well, the DNA's changed.
is woke, isn't it?
Listen to what happened at conference. It is very different. And I was the same as you.
Isn't
I
that
thought the
papering
Tory party
over the
was
cracks?
dead.
It's just a good speech and a couple of policy announcements.
No, I don't think so. I think her statement quite clearly that if you do not believe in the party's direction, that you are not standing.
Why should she have to say that? Nigel doesn't have to say that to Reform UK people. They don't have to sign a document saying that we'll deport illegal immigrants. They all believe it.
Do they really?
Sure. I mean, anyone in the turquoise rosette wants to deport illegal immigrants, close the border, scrap net zero. It's unequivocal. It's a coherent political project with a clear aim and a clear philosophy, which the Tories don't have.
I mean, we talk about division. I think Reform's probably seen some of the most chaotic division so far in the parliamentary party, in the fact that they've lost 2 MPs and they've only got 5. So I think we really must actually start judging Reform on what they're doing. They haven't been able to manage their group of 5 MPs. Their councils haven't delivered so far on what they've promised. And yes, I admit the fact that they actually haven't had very long to do so, but they just lack experience, they lack detail, whereas I think the Conservatives are promising that. And on that last caller's note, he was talking about net zero. The Conservatives at conference said that they would scrap £1.6 billion worth of net zero funding. So she's actually been really clear on this, and I think that we actually need to give the Conservative Party their due. I think it is best for the country that we don't just have another protest vote. The Labour government coming in was a protest vote, and I get people are fed up with the 2 main parties, but we can't keep voting for, you know, the best worst alternative anymore. We've got to think of, we need a sensible government, we need sensible people in charge, we need people who know what they're doing, who've done it before and who have got detail in their policy, and I think that the Conservatives offer that. And look, I thought the party was dead, I really did, but this conference has changed my mind.
Richard says, Mark, your guest is another flip-flop, won't be missed, Reform for me. Also, we have an unnamed texter. Mark, unfortunately, your guest forgets that the Conservatives tried to make changes but were stopped by the Blob, who were accusing them of bullying, etc. They gave in. Good morning, Mark, says Chris. Sophie is talking rubbish. It was the Tories who gave us everything that she is against, and now she's talking the Tories up. Gary in Canterbury, the way I see it is that the Conservative Party conference may have been great. However, all they're doing is trying to win votes by saying good things. But who can trust them after they had their chance for 14 years and messed it up in the end? Anna, I admire your young lady's efforts to convince us that her defection to the Tories is justified, but may I suggest that she needs to convince herself first, as her answers and conviction are at best wobbly. Colin says Sophie should remember that us old folk were young once. She will be old herself one day and need some benefit. Interesting stuff. Listen, let's take a call from Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, I've got Sophie Corcoran here. She's left Reform to join the Tories. What say you?
Well, I don't think she was ever really keen on Reform in the first place.
Well, do you want to respond to that, Sophie? What predicated your move to Nigel's project?
You know what? I think you're sort of right in the end. I think that when I got into Reform, I expected it to be something that it wasn't. And that is, you know, a fall to me, because I expected that Reform would be a party that values free speech. And let me tell you, there is no free speech internally within the Reform Party. We've seen people who are branch chairs be thrown out for doing virtually nothing. I had a run-in with the Reform Party leadership when I said that I believe that there are people in Reform who wouldn't support scrapping the 2-child benefit cap. I was then called a moron by Isabel Oakeshott. So look, there's no free speech in the Reform Party. If you even do the most minor criticisms of them, you will be attacked. It is almost virtually acting like a cult. And I think if there's no free speech within that party, if he cannot even accept free speech from the people that are mostly on his side, can we trust him to protect free speech when he is in government?
Wait a minute, isn't that just good party management, coherent messaging and running a tight ship?
No, not at all. There's a difference between coherent messaging and attacking anybody that wants to even give you the most sort of tiniest of criticism. I've seen people who were, you know, attacked personally for saying, oh, I'm not quite sure the messaging is quite right on this local leaflet. And also, there's no internal democracy in this party whatsoever. I recall back to the Peterborough and Cambridgeshire election, and Reform had put out a leaflet in Peterborough telling people that they should vote for their Cambridgeshire County Councillor. Now, anybody who lives in Peterborough knows that Peterborough is a unitary council. It is not within Cambridgeshire County Council, and all Reform had to do was message somebody locally to say, is this all right? And we would have said, absolutely not, please do not put this out. But they didn't, because everything is so tightly controlled at the top. You're not allowed free speech. There's no internal democracy. And look, I'm a Conservative and I believe in free speech and I believe in democracy.
OK, briefly, Mary, do you want to put Sophie right on Reform UK? Because I understand you're backing Nigel all the way.
Yes, I am, and I have done for years. Because he stood by everything he said years ago has not only come about, but he's still saying the same thing. And things have occurred that have proved what he said is right. But with regards to this young lady, I just think she's a little bit naive. Does she not think that these sort of things go on in every party? That there's control and there's no lack of freedom of speech? How many party politicians of all the parties have left their party or been kicked out because they've not towed the line. But you don't hear about that, and I think she's a little bit naive, but she's only young and she'll learn.
There you go, Mary. You're wise. You're a wise head on wise shoulders there. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us. Please come back and see us soon. Really enjoyed your company in the studio. You sparked a debate which will continue in the next hour. But first up, Dolan's Dispatch. Don't go anywhere.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed. Very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a House of Mirrors, where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it a channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour Ghost Train.
Yeah.
We're
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. It is 3 minutes past 8. It is Saturday morning. Your weekend starts here. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. Now, following a better-than-expected party conference, are the Tories back? Jeremy Clarkson has said the Conservatives are talking sense again, but can you forgive them for their failures and betrayal of the last 14 years? Meanwhile, 2.5 million people are having fat jabs, but do they work? And is this the answer to Britain's obesity crisis? I'll be asking comedy legend Christopher Biggins, who's on the fat jabs himself, plus the illegal migrant guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage is going to be sentenced next week. But will he get as long as Lucy Connolly? I won't hold my breath. Plus, Ricky Hatton remembered as stars gather to reflect on an amazing career and an amazing life taken from us far too soon. Ricky Hatton will reflect on his remarkable entire contribution to professional sport and British culture later in the hour. Don't make them like that anymore, do they? And we are having the mother of all debates this morning. The switchboard has completely melted. The message board has exploded because I had a guest on earlier who said that Nigel Farage needs media training, that he doesn't like difficult questions, and effectively that Nigel Farage is a dangerous chancer. I beg your pardon. Have you not seen the polls? So is Nigel Farage the answer to Britain's problems, or is he a dangerous chancer? 0344 499 1000. Feelings are running very high on this one at the moment. Morning, Mark, says Sean in Bicester. Has your guest been taking stupid pills? Talk about not reading the room. So we'll have a deep dive into Nigel Farage's political revolution in the next 60 minutes. And it's all about your opinions. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. So much to get through. A big 2 hours. I can't do it without you. As the saying goes, let's talk. We are in-app, we are on DAB+, we're online and we're on TV as well. Just head to YouTube and search Talk and you'll find us there. But as always at this time in the show, it is time for Dolan's Dispatch. It's a funny old world, isn't it? Donald Trump, such a terrible human being. He's a fascist, apparently. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's every kind of ist you can think of. He is the bad orange man. How confusing, therefore, that this terribly bad orange man, as he's characterised by the media both here and in the United States, should orchestrate an extraordinary peace deal in the Middle East, one that they said couldn't be done. This is the same bad orange man who made history in his first term by establishing the Abraham Accords with several major Arab states, recognising Israel and establishing diplomatic relations for the first time ever. Bad orange man, apparently. This is a guy who has improved the terms by which America trades with the world, something that they said wasn't possible and would destroy the US economy. Well, the bad orange man's tariff war made America immeasurably richer overnight, with blocs like the European Union previously charging America 30% for US goods coming into Europe. Well, Americans now pay zero tariffs, that's right, zero tariffs for US goods going into Europe. Meanwhile, Europeans must now pay 15% to the Americans when it was previously nothing. Bad orange man. This is the terrible human being who closed the US border following an illegal invasion of 12 million people over the last 4 years under the cognitively challenged Joe Biden. Whilst thousands poured into the country every hour under Sleepy Joe, it's now a few hundred every month on the watch of the bad orange man. Donald Trump has ended illegal immigration unilaterally. It is a miracle. This is a guy who has tackled waste in America's public institutions, curbed the worst excesses of foreign aid, which is the biggest scam out there. And this is a man who has successfully waged a war on woke, with racist and divisive diversity policies cancelled and executive orders signed to kick men out of women's sport, out of their bathrooms and out of their locker rooms. Bad orange man, apparently. This is a guy that's restored law and order in crime-ridden hellholes like DC and Chicago. Well, personally, I wouldn't say no to a few government troops bringing law and order back to Britain's crime-ridden streets. Now, Trump is not perfect, far from it. And some aspects of the ICE department's efforts to deport people do look to be brutal, at times unfair, misjudged, cruel, and maybe sometimes wrong. They need to focus, in my view, on foreign criminals. But he did say that he would deport people who entered America illegally, and that is what he is doing. In fact, there's nothing that the bad orange man has done that he didn't say he was going to do before the election. That is in stark contrast to our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, who apparently is such a good guy, one of the good people, one of the great humans, who has killed the economy, raised taxes, given away the Chagos Islands, attacked farmers and pensioners, and rolled out digital ID, none of which were in his manifesto. And when it comes to taxes, Starmer said he wouldn't raise them, and then he did. But apparently Trump is the bad orange man, and Starmer, this wonderful, great human being, make it make sense. Donald Trump, by the way, a wealthy man who takes no salary from the US taxpayer. Meanwhile, Starmer, a wealthy man who takes a salary and every freebie going. Concert tickets, football tickets, luxury accommodation, suits, spectacles, you name it. You know, the left are a mystery to me. How did they manage to appropriate and own the idea that they're the good people, given that they propagate a failed and discredited economic model in socialism, which simply leads to poverty, misery and death? The good people on the left, who think you can have 100 genders, who hate the history of this country, are embarrassed by the nation's flag, who back the death cult Hamas, and who shout racism and far right when millions of ordinary people who watch this show and listen to this show every day consider immigration to be too high, which of course it is. It was the good people of the left. They are the good people, folks. And it was the good people of the left who walked us into hell with the insane lockdowns and mask and vaccine tyranny. Yes, Boris Johnson was in number 10, but it was the left who were the biggest cheerleaders of COVID authoritarianism all over the world. Meanwhile, Trump was very relaxed about COVID. It is what it is, he said. He was right. This is the same Donald Trump, the same bad orange man who warned the Germans about their reliance on Vladimir Putin's oil and gas in 2018. He called it years ago. And just last month, the same Trump, the same bad orange man, warned Europe that there won't be a Europe anymore if they don't have firm borders. Well, he was right in 2018, and he's right now. But you know, the bad orange man, well, he's quite the opposite, because he's a force for good in the world, and he's just brokered an extraordinary peace deal. Ironically, it's the left, the good people, who love all the bad stuff. Open borders, they collude with the criminal gangs via activist lawyers and judges, and via the snake oil lie of safer routes across the channel. It's the left, the so-called good people, who think you can solve racism with racism by preventing white people from applying for certain jobs or university places, by having black-only theatre performances, and by telling children as young as 6 that they must atone for historic crimes because of the colour of their skin. So Donald Trump is the bad orange man, but he's transforming the fortunes of the United States. He is helping and fighting for the American people. Meanwhile, the caring left are currently in power in the UK, right? This Labour government, presiding over the slow collapse of a once great country. Now, Trump is a narcissist. Yes, he is. He's unpredictable. He's a liar. He is. He's a lunatic. He's erratic. He has the attention span of a dead goldfish. Yes, he does. But you know what? He is delivering for America, for all Americans, in every conceivable way. And by the way, the stock market in America is at a record high, highest it's ever been, and economic growth is expected to go through the roof in the months and years ahead. All thanks to the business-friendly policies and tax cuts for all Americans that Trump said he would roll out, and of course has rolled out, because He says he's going to do something, and then he does it. And with this extraordinary Middle East peace deal and fresh hopes for Ukraine, Trump is delivering not just for America, but for the world as well. Donald Trump is the bad orange man, apparently. Except that Keir Starmer, a grey man in a borrowed suit, pales in comparison. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. Donald Trump's done an amazing job. We need a Trump in this country. Is it Nigel Farage? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Stephen is on the line. Stephen, thank you for calling Talk. Welcome to breakfast. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Mark. Great show. I like having you on. You remind me of David Bull. He was exciting.
Oh, that's so kind of you, and I'm very happy to be compared to Big David Bull. Brilliant broadcaster and a great guy. Now, Stephen, first of all, your reaction, I've compared the leadership of Donald Trump and Keir Starmer, and in my view, Starmer pales in comparison. What say you?
I think there's some good and bad points to Donald Trump. I like what he's doing on the international stage. The problem with Nigel Farage, I was a Reform member. I have not renewed my Reform membership. I don't want to go back to the Tories, but my worry is that he's trying to pander to the rich and the benefit class now. He's abandoned he wants to abandon the two-child benefit cap, and also he wants to encourage billionaires, particularly Bitcoin holders, to come to the UK and give them a 10% tax break when he doesn't do anything for the people in the middle. So there's a danger he'll alienate the people in the middle.
However, I think you'll agree the country is crying out for some true conservatism. It has been for years now, and surely that only comes in the form of Reform UK and Farage.
I think Ben Habib was the person I liked in Reform. He's now left because I think Farage is the front man. I like him. I've been to his meetings in Torquay. But the thing is, this two-child benefit cap says a lot. My father had 4 children. He was a plumber. He got a tax allowance for each of us years ago, so the more he earned, the more he could keep. That encouraged working people to have bigger families. What we're likely to do is to increase the people reliant on the state through taking away the two-child benefit cap, and that is not conservatism.
Most definitely. What about Nigel's bold policies on immigration? Because I think, Stephen, that immigration is the only show in town. Illegal immigration is costing the country a fortune, and legal mass migration is slowly bankrupting the country and destroying social cohesion. It is Reform UK that are the only party that are serious about reversing that.
Totally agree on that.
And is that not enough to give Big Nigel a chance?
I think it will. I think Reform will be the biggest party, but I think it'll be a hung parliament because I think they are weak on some of these financial policies. They are abandoning the people in the middle, you know, the aspirant middle class, where I come from. And that is a big danger.
So you think that Reform are trying to ride 2 horses? They're trying to ride, win the support of red wall northern seats that are going to seek, a bigger state and more welfare spending, and then the super rich, and then everyone else in between gets forgotten.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's likely to happen. But the immigration side, totally agree with you. He's 100% on the ball with that. But I think, like somebody was saying earlier, your chief inspector guest, he was saying we need radical reform. We almost need a revolution. Sack half the civil servants. Totally reform the NHS. But who will be powerful enough or want to do that if they want to get elected?
It's a very good question. Stephen, really enjoyed your call. Do call me again soon. 0344 499 1000. Christina says, hi, Mark. Yes, Nigel is the guy we want. Straight talking, and we know where we stand. Nigel is reaching all the people and will put the British people first. However, I would say opinion's quite divided among sort of small c Conservative voters on the show, because Lynn has said Farage is for Farage. We need Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, honest politicians. And Curtis says, hi Mark, Curtis here from Lingfield. Anyone that thinks the Tories are back needs to get themselves down to Specsavers because they've got something in their eyes, which I cannot say what it is, says Curtis. They've had 14 years. And we're now only with two-tier Keir because the Tories put us here by doing such a bad job. That is a fact. The Tories is a party made up from left and right-wing people. You can't run a party like that because they will never agree. The next government is reform. The British people have had enough and have spoken. Just look at the polls. Is Nigel Farage the real deal? We'll debate that next.
War was declared on Israel when Hamas invaded with 3,000 jihadists, when they filmed themselves perpetrating the most sadistic atrocities, when they took 251 hostages, including children, into Gaza, and when their allies Hezbollah, the Houthis, started firing missiles at Israel. We were at war, and the question then is, how do you get out of that war? But how do you get out of the war in a way that brings the hostages home and makes sure Hamas cannot start this war again?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So, is Nigel Farage the real deal or a dangerous crank? This is certainly the view of some of my earlier guests. Sandra says, Mark, when you've lost everything you hold dear in this country, what have you got to lose by voting reform? Nigel, says Matt, Nigel said he would lift the child benefit cap for workers, not benefit claimants. And Ero says the problem with the Tories is they will be sclerotic with the wet lefties, same as Labour, with the even more extreme lefties. How about Paul in Fife? Morning, Mark. Something that's confused me for some time. Why does President Trump give Starmer the time of day, let alone describe him as doing a great job for the UK? Surely Trump knows the truth. Why hasn't he publicly ripped Starmer to shreds? He's had so many opportunities to do so. Starmer is, what does that say? It's a little typo there. He demonstrates that he hates Britain so much. Paul, thank you for that. Paul reacting to today's Dolan's dispatch, in which I would argue the leadership of Donald Trump compares very favourably to that of Keir Starmer, particularly this incredible peace deal in the United States. But I'm delighted to say, to reflect on the big stories of the day, in the studio we have political strategist Peter Barnes and senior fellow at the Centre for Social Justice, Matthew Torbett. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Matthew, can I officially uncancel you?
Yes, if you wish.
On Talk Breakfast, because you experienced something of a setback on your visit to the Labour Party conference, which should have gone swimmingly because you are a Labour Party supporter.
Well, you would hope so.
Yeah,
and
what
you would hope that. Well, I went to go and see the leader's speech and couldn't get in. Into the secure area, and they said my pass had been rescinded. Conference services knew nothing of it. I then got a letter saying we've made the very tough decision to cancel your pass. I've had no explanation from the Labour Party. I have emailed twice. They have given somewhat vague statements to the press, but not to me. So I will be. I'm looking into legal action. I'd rather not get into a position where I sue my own party, but I think reputational damage is something to be considered very serious. And I can't help but think, without a proper reason, it is because I've been helping other people who want to be the next Prime Minister. And the fact that we're doing very badly. So whether it's a case of clipping my wings because Andy Burnham had to make a bit of a retreat over the week, that week, or whatever else, I don't know is the truth. But, you know, it's very disappointing.
What does it tell us about the culture and the management of the party at the moment that a loyal supporter like yourself should be banned in that way?
Well, they would say I'm not a loyal supporter because I've not done the party line. I think if there is nowhere... Surely the place to talk about airs and grievances about the Labour Party is Labour Party conference. I met with members, we spoke about things that are going well, things that are going badly, and that's surely the place to do it amongst people who are also members. That wasn't the case. This has always been the way, though. It's deeply factional. The people involved are quite nasty and peevish, and therefore... This is where we are.
Is that exclusive to politics, or is it a Labour Party issue in particular, do you think?
I can't speak about other parties. Peter may know more about the Conservatives.
Peter, what do you think?
It's a politics-wide problem. This is the thing. The tight control that the parties want over conference is incredible, and I think it's because all of these party conferences have been about the leadership. The Kemi one, Keir Starmer in particular, it's about making sure that the party is together. They can't have any separation of message. And like Matthew's very good at actually being able to say, well, Starmer should be doing better, and which is not an unreasonable position. It's not like you've come out to call for his resignation or anything. I saw this and I thought it was absolutely extraordinary decision by them.
Well, speaking of extraordinary, we had an amazingly heated debate at 6 a.m. this morning with my previous guest, Graham Davis, who implied that Nigel Farage needs media training, created the perception that the Reform UK leader is a dangerous chancer. This is a voice note from Pete the Mole. Take it away, Pete.
As far as I'm concerned, those calling in slating Nigel Farage are the ones that need some sort of training. Farage is the only chance this country has now. Starmer is putting this country down the drain. We need an election sooner rather than later. Nigel Farage needs to be in 10 Downing Street. He's going to have a hard job. It's going to be a bloody hard mess to sort out that Labour have left. The debt Labour have going to be left the country with is going to be humongous. So he's going to have to make some hard decisions, and the country is going to have to go with this. But there is nobody else apart from Nigel that can help us now.
Tarquin is in the capital. Tarquin, is Nigel the answer to this country's problems, or is he a dangerous chancer?
You mean Saint Nigel, of course, Mark. You mean Saint Nigel.
Just a matter of time.
Indeed. Well, I'm not that he's a Catholic, but if he... I think... No, well, of course you'd expect his critics to say that, but the fact is, you know, for anyone that gets up on the podium at their conference and calls him a snake oil merchant, what do you expect for ad hominem attacks? Yeah, that's all they've got left, isn't it? They've done the racist card. That's completely blunted now. Nobody is a racist. It's completely ridiculous. Of course he is, in his own words, Mark, he is our bridgehead to democracy, real democracy, not this uniparty thing that Rupert Lowe has written some brilliant documents of late. I can't remember the title, but check them out on how to revisit our constitution, basically, Mark. So, yeah, no, he is the man because he will give us the bridgehead to Dunkirk in reverse. He will get us out of Europe and it'll be the bridgehead back to Dover to clear the shores. Yeah.
OK, Tarquin, stay there. there you go, Peter Barnes. You're quite a critic of Nigel and Reform UK. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, I'd like whatever he's drinking at this time in the morning. My lord, I've never heard such drivel with respect. I have to admit, this idea that he's going to be the great saviour makes absolutely no sense. Nigel Farage and economic competency have never been in the same room. You want to talk about the level of debt? The amount of money you're going to need to do even 3 or 4 of the vague policies we're getting from Reform is astronomical. Also, the idea that he's some kind of right-wing saviour. He wants to nationalise and expand the welfare state. Last time I looked, not conservative policies in any stretch of the imagination.
He's going to save about 200 billion, cancelling indefinite leave to remain from the Boris wave. He's going to scrap net zero, and he's going to cut waste.
Okay, scrap net zero. Let's look at this one. We have to have certain markers to be part of certain international treaties, such as the TPPT one, which is going to potentially has the benefit of billions of pounds for the UK. We would have to pull out of that because of the kind of scrap all net zero. So which is more important? This is the thing. It's not thinking beyond the end of your nose.
Well,
it's really easy.
The cost of net zero is higher than any income from the CPTPP.
At the moment, but not in the future.
Sorry, Peter, the cost of not doing net zero is actually more expensive than doing it. If you look at any evidence coming down the traps, that therefore is the issue.
Well, when is net zero going to come good for the country and start saving us money? Not in my lifetime.
Maybe not. I don't know is the truth. All I know is if you look at any evidence done by the committees on climate change, it will cost us much more money in the long run if we do not.
Our entire economy is geared around the green economy.
There you go. So, Tarquin, Peter and Matthew aren't having it. They're not having the scrapping of net zero, the welfareism, the nationalisation of industries.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, I have to say that none of the above will matter at all if the one man that's vowed from day one to pass a Great Repeal Act and get rid of any chance of the digital ID. Anyone who's for that is for me and for the rest of Britain.
That I do agree with.
Get ready.
I do agree with that 100%. But what I will argue is that, you know, it's not just about the one single policy. The problem is there is no coordinated idea behind reform. It is lurching from policy to policy, and I say that very vaguely. But I think it's more along the ideas that they are reacting and not leading. It's very different. There's a difference between noise and leadership. Nigel Farage is great about making a lot of noise, yet he hasn't led on anything, because the minute something gets difficult, do you know what he does? He runs away. Let's look at UKIP, look at the Brexit Party, all of it. He runs away. So the idea you're getting some reverse Dunkirk, I'd like to see
This is a guy that stood there for years at Dover, calling out the illegal immigration. He was called a racist, he was called a fascist, called a Nazi.
So were a lot of people. He's not the only one. And also, he's very good. He's very good at giving
I don't remember
it back.
anyone else calling it out.
I love this idea that he's somehow a big victim. He's the biggest snowflake I've ever seen in professional politics. He plays the victim card at every single moment. This idea that the government has pulled his security, no, it's not. It is a lie to argue that. It is absolutely unbelievable.
He should have the same security as the Prime Minister, because he's going to be our next PM.
Oh, good Lord. That's just a ridiculous statement.
No, I really feel that very strongly.
I can't.
The polls would suggest, Peter...
The polls would suggest at one point Jeremy Corbyn was going to be Prime Minister.
Sure.
So should he still get the same level of security?
Yeah.
Right,
if you're the Prime Minister-elect, most definitely, because
we don't have a Prime Minister-elect.
Corbyn got 3 million more votes in 2017 than Starmer did in 2024.
Yeah, but that's rather irrelevant due to the fact that that's not how our system works. We don't have, just because you've got the most votes, you win. We have a first-past-the-post system. We have a parliamentary democracy. We can't just keep saying we love all these institutions, and then the minute we don't like the kind of the maths of it, we start fiddling the numbers. That's my big argument when it comes to all this kind of stuff. You can't defend Parliament and then want to ruin all the rules of it.
Herbie in Harrow. It turns out Nigel Farage is a snowflake, says Peter Barnes.
He's joking, of course. Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
The thing is, Nigel is a very, very good speaker. He mixes with the people. He talks to the people. I've known him for years. I've been on campaigns with him, and he does the job which he's there to do. You've got to remember, he was an MEP for a lot longer than some of the MPs that are in Parliament today. So he's got far more experience than most of them put together.
So how is he anti-establishment if he's been a part of the establishment for all this time? This is another thing I don't understand. It's a great narrative, but it's just not true.
Matthew Torbett, the small matter of delivering Brexit. The biggest constitutional change to the country in 100 years. Herbie, go for it. Herbie.
Hold on a minute. Yes,
It wasn't who delivered Brexit. Remember, the Conservatives didn't deliver Brexit because they didn't come up with a deal that could have got us the result that we wanted.
No, but Herbie, there's no Brexit without Nigel, and old Peter's trying to say that Nigel hasn't done anything.
He's the biggest threat to Brexit.
Well, he's not empowered to do anything. That's the problem. You know, he's got other people that are supposed to got the results over. Yes, we got Nigel got Brexit, but he wasn't empowered to do anything. And this is where people keep knocking. They do knock people that are successful, and Nigel's been successful at the moment. They don't like it. They're jealous. They're jealous.
Okay, Matthew Torbett. Stay there, Herbie. Matthew.
He could have been totally empowered to do something if he wanted to stand to be Prime Minister. He never got himself together. If he was really that bothered, I actually think it suited Nigel Farage, and also why I've always been long of the theory I don't think he wants to be Prime Minister deep down. Because what happens now is, anything you've ever done, you've ran away from, as Peter said. You may have campaigned for Brexit. You didn't deliver it. You didn't stay around to deliver it.
There would be no Brexit if it wasn't for Nigel Farage.
I didn't say that. But I didn't say that. There may not have been, however, he did not deliver it.
Well, that's not his fault.
The political equivalent, Mark, it was the political equivalent of trying to get eggs out of a baked cake. And he didn't want to stick around to do the hard yards. If he ends up Prime Minister, he's going to tarnish his sort of legacy amongst his supporters.
Well, I think critics of Nigel have got egg on their face, and they will do in 3.5 years' time. What is this fresh hell? Has the world gone mad? Peter Barnes has just said that Nigel Farage, wait for it, is a threat to Brexit.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, Mark. This is Curtis from Lingfield. Peter, I've said it once this morning. I'm going to say it again. Get yourself down to Specsavers because you've got something in your eyes. You, my friend, are in denial. You're the exact problem with this country. I bet you think people putting flags up are racist.
No, I think putting flags up is great. Getting all worked up over it is pointless. And
Peter, what's happened to you? You've become very left-wing. You've become very woke. You are a classic example of the modern Tory party. You love open borders. Now you're all about net zero. What's going on?
Well, you know, I'm starting to come around to the idea that maybe just shouting about things isn't leadership, and actually we have to think about something longer than the end of our noses and stop kicking the can and deal with the issues. The problem is all we ever do is get really angry and we don't do anything.
Net zero's an insane idea.
Yeah,
We've got to scrap it unilaterally.
But just pulling out of it, just say we're going to scrap it. One is not a policy because, like we said, our economy is so ingrained in the green economy that just ripping it out would put billions at risk.
Yeah, fine. It'll be less billions than what net zero is costing us.
But not immediate. You've got to start thinking immediate term, middle term, long term. This is how policy is done. This is how grown-ups
this is how the Conservatives govern.
This is how they should have governed.
But
they didn't.
Look
Don't
at
get
Trump.
me wrong.
Trump's torn up the rule book.
Because there's a presidency. He has executive orders. Nigel Farage Farage cannot just wander into number 10 and start saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He will not have that power.
He will.
If he doesn't get a majority, he's got even less power.
No, I agree with that. What I think Nigel needs two things. I think he needs a massive majority
without a doubt
of like-minded MPs, and he needs 10 years.
Oh, I think when you say like-minded MPs, do you mean people that will just do as they're told?
Yes.
Because I thought you're after radicals. I thought you're after free thinkers. I thought you're after people that want to. So you want to be the Uniparty?
No, we need UK.
Is that the admission there that the reform needs the Uniparty?
Uniparty 2.0. What Britain needs is MAGA 2.0. Look at the loyalty to Donald Trump. And I know he's crazy, and I know he's a narcissist, and I know he's maybe not the nicest human being on the planet, but he's delivering for the Americans, Matthew. He's improved the terms by which America trades with the world. He's got the economy growing, the stock market's a record high, tax cuts not just for the rich but for everyone.
The economy
Trump
growing?
is delivering.
Inflation. No. Let's not buy the snake oil.
The stock market is at a record high. The US economy is growing, and it's about to go even higher.
So I think I'm sure those queuing up at the food bank are over the moon about that. I think
there were food banks under Barack Obama.
And I didn't say there wasn't. I think there is a constant issue going on here. I think he's done very well with the border. I think there is movement clearly in the Middle East that we should all be tentatively pleased about. However, inflation is record high, unemployment is up, and even loyalists such as Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying it's his fault the shutdown is happening. So all is not necessarily well in MAGA world.
Well, he's had to recalibrate with the tariffs, which has proved to be a triumph. And by the time of the next election, America will be cooking with gas. Maybe quite literally as well, because they use their own energy.
Well, when it comes to the tariffs, let's look at the climb down over China. He had to deliberately climb down and make certain concessions over the China tariffs. So it's not exactly a kind of rousing rendition of woo Trump. I'm a huge Trump. I was a Trump fan in 2015. Right. I've been a big supporter of his. But what I don't really acknowledge this idea that everything is wonderful under Donald Trump. It's not. And as for the MAGA stuff, that is more fractured than the reform base. It's ridiculous.
Now, we've got a caller here. Daniel in Epsom. Daniel, your reaction to what Peter Barnes and Matthew Torbett have said. They're not having Nigel at all. A dangerous chancer, apparently.
Yeah, well, most of their side of the media are saying that kind of thing. But if I ran for UKIP in the past, I've met Nigel quite a few times. I've shared a pint with him in the Westminster Arms. And I can tell you that the one thing that they won't understand is that man believes every word he says. And he doesn't change. He's got integrity, and he's got so much integrity that most of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, they don't even know what the word means.
Can I respond to that really quickly? One quick question. Nigel Farage said that deportations were not possible. Now he's running around saying it's our only hope. You want to talk about integrity? That man flip-flops more than a pair on the beach. It is absolutely astonishing to me. The guy would not know how to stick to a policy if his life depended on it. He moves with the wind. I would say he's a political weather vane, but I don't think there's any spinny bit left.
Okay, I'll tell you what, let's make it interesting. These shows are recorded, okay? So, Mark, have a little bet with him. I'm gonna have a wager with you.
Love this.
That Nigel was going to be our next Prime Minister. He's going to be stood behind the lectern. He's going to stop the decline and degradation. We're going to scrap net zero. We all concede mass immigration from the third world is destroying the fabric of our country, and I think he's going to do something about it. And I think people like you are going to be out of work. Because as a political weather vane, I don't think you can see any way into the future. I don't think you know the thoughts and feelings of the British majority. And I think
you vaguely overestimate what you mean by the majority, due to the fact that if you look at most of the polling post-conference, Labour went up, Reform stayed exactly where it was. This is the point. You also have to point out that there were -29 favourability, like him, to Nigel Farage. You can keep saying the country love him. Most evidence says it doesn't.
Matthew, I mean, I think Peter is a Tory in denial. They all are in denial, okay? Because the bottom line is, yes, Labour have got their problems. I get that. But the Tories are done for. And I think that there's a lot of shy reform voters out there who don't tell the pollsters that they'll be backing Farage, and in 3.5 years' time they absolutely will.
I think there probably is some shy reformers. I don't think they're going to get 400, 500 seats, as some polls suggest. It's going to be quite the earthquake they expect. I think the likely outcome at the moment, I would say, would be a hung parliament, and the likelihood is the Tories will have to do a deal with reform to remain relevant and obviously be in government, or Labour don't lose as badly and the Lib Dems do them a favour and help them out. I think we'll actually be more divided than ever. And I think Nigel, like many politicians, can be full of promises and milk and honey and whatever else. I think, unfortunately, if he does end up Prime Minister, he's going to inherit a worse economic situation than Labour did.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think, therefore,
can we all agree on that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, I think, therefore, what does he do? And what does the country do when he goes, I can't afford our £10 billion deportation plan anymore? It's going to become a pressure cooker environment, and is he the man to be able to deal with that, or does he begin to do what he does very well and blames Whitehall, blame institutions, it's not my fault?
The excuses are already being inbuilt into the narrative as to why he's not going to succeed. It is absolutely astonishing to me.
Let's get Lorraine on the show if we can, Kieran, because she's got an interesting point to make. How about this from Steve? Good morning, Mark. Now I know that Nigel is over the target. Peter, instead of scoffing at Nigel, he's quite animated. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you, then we win.
Oh, I can't wait for him to win. Because everything we've just said will be proven 100% correct. I think in the same way we needed to get this Labour Party out of our system, we need to get the Reform Party out of our system.
Simon says the PM has ultimate power. After the global elite tell the Prime Minister what they want the Prime Minister to do, these governmental people aren't fooling anyone. Lots of people are dumb enough to go along with the government ideas, but others know better. I mean, it's a very interesting one, isn't it? This could be good news for Labour if the Tories do pick up some momentum, Matthew, because that obviously splits the vote on the right, doesn't it?
I think so, but the fact that we're even talking in this way shows me the abject failure that we've been in the last 14, 15 months of government. And I would actually say the rise of Nigel Farage is due to the utter failure of both of the main parties. Ultimately, we aren't reaching out to our base as we used to. People feel left behind and forgotten about. We are governed by people who aren't in touch with their communities and the majority of people. Therefore, there has been a vacuum where these people weren't Reform voters. They were Labour and Tory voters who feel that they've been failed. We shouldn't even be speaking in these terms. And I think unless there is a big shift, I know there was lots of talk of Kemi being safe now and Keir being safe now. I think the bar was so low. If they could get through conference, it was a success. I'm sure leadership talk will continue into November when we have a bad budget and Kemi has a flat response, and therefore we continue on over more.
The rinse and repeat cycle will continue. But I will say that I think you make a good point there. Every point we've had from callers and yourself, Mark, has always been the Tories this, Labour that. But I thought Reform weren't a protest vote, because everything is based on the fact that you've argued for something on the basis of not being something. Well, that is not a pro-choice, a kind of pro-vote, is it? You're launching everything, not on Nigel is wonderful because of this policy, it's Nigel is wonderful because he didn't do this, this and this. Well, that is a real point of contention between the argument and reality.
And actually, it's 2024 again. There was no love for Labour on the doorstep when I was knocking. They just hated the Tories more. And I think what we're now going to possibly end up with is we really can't stand the Tories, they're irrelevant. Labour were furious with them, we can't stand because they've shafted us whilst in government. So now we've got this guy that's left, essentially.
Mark says, Louise, Peter is a closet liberal. Sometimes you just need balls, mate. How about this? Why are folk obsessed with how Farage will manage the economy compared to what Rachel from Accounts has done? Yeah, she's doing such a grand job. Not, says Stephen. These two on now have as much imagination as a light bulb. That's David, who's not happy at all. And one particular texter, I've lost the text now, but they said that both of your partners are sleeping with someone else this morning. As
well, you know, you can't win them all, Matt.
No, because you're a pair of wusses. I tell you who has got a pair of balls, and it's Lorraine in Chelmsford and Essex. Morning, Lorraine. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, good morning, Mark. I just wanted to make a point. I was listening to Sophie, and then the caller going in, remarking about the two-child benefit cap.
Yeah.
Now, the removal of that will only apply if you're going out to work. The idea is to get people off benefits and out to work.
Exactly. So the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped under Reform, but it will be targeted towards people that get out there and put in a shift.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's to give people a bit of room to be aspirational again, rather than just solely relying on the benefits. system.
I'd love it if it was that. But however, how are you going to do it? That's the big thing. It's really easy to say we're going to target this, we're going to focus on that. My question is how? What's the limits? What's the caps? This is the important bits of detail. And you can say we've got 3.5 years to the next election, but we are in that much of a dire economic situation. I need to know that the guy who's in number 10 actually has an idea, because the problem is with the last general election is we let the guy in because he wasn't the other one, and it turns out he has even less of a
But
clue.
Lorraine, these people are not stupid, are they? I mean, you got Zia Youssef, who's a former top entrepreneur. The same with Richard Tice. Nigel Farage worked in the city. These people understand money.
I think the idea is with reform is to remove benefits from illegals here or foreign-born people that have never worked here and put anything into our system, to cut down on this net zero nonsense, so that we've got a little bit more money to look after our own people.
Yeah, most definitely. Lorraine, I really appreciate your contribution. Do call me again soon. Lots of truth bombs there. Thank you, Lorraine. We'll catch up. Have a great weekend. 0344 499 1000. Lads, stick around. After this, we're going to remember the legendary Ricky Hatton, and we're going to continue this conversation. Is Nigel ready for power?
into Gaza, and when their allies Hezbollah, the Houthis, started firing missiles at Israel. We were at war, and the question then is, how do you get out of that war? But how do you get out of the war in a way that brings the hostages home and makes sure Hamas cannot start this war again?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is a very, very heated debate we're having. Nigel Farage, is he ready for government? Some people think he's the answer to Britain's problems. Others, including my two guests in the studio, think he's a dangerous agitator. This is from Sue. Nigel should have been involved in the Brexit negotiations, but the Tories would not have it. Matthew and Peter are talking rubbish. Nigel is sensible in not divulging everything for the useless parties. to try and scupper his plans. Simon says, I wasn't a Reform voter. Reform will be in, and hopefully with a swathe of votes. Rob says, Peter Barnes, your guest, yawn, yawn and yawn again. Nigel will be PM and Peter Barnes can't stand it. A typical Tory who's in denial about the state of his party. Perhaps he'd be more suited in the Lib Dems. Are you worried if the Tories do recover ground? And I'll grant you, they had a good conference. Yes. Are we back to square one with a split vote on the right and another 5 years of Starmer?
I still think Starmer's on track to win the next general election. I generally do, because of the split on the right, but also the fact that I don't think people like Nigel Farage. I also think one thing the Reform are underestimating is this kind of rainbow coalition, that if actually most of the kind of left-wing parties get together, whether formally or not, and have some kind of loose agreements between standing candidates in certain areas, they could quite easily bully Reform out of the vote entirely. I don't think they've really thought that far ahead, and that's a big problem for them. But for me, I just don't see how we can accept the guy with no plans, the guy who shouts boring at a journalist for asking a reasonable question. The moment anybody asks him a question, he's been attacked. And yet you're saying, oh, he's keeping all these things quiet and not giving them chance for scrutiny. That sounds like a man terrified of criticism.
OK, well, listen, we'll come back to this conversation. Front page of the Sun newspaper, live forever in our hearts, Ricky. Liam Gallagher's farewell kiss for Ricky Hatton. Oasis star Liam Gallagher bids Ricky Hatton a touching farewell yesterday at the boxing legend's star-studded funeral. The singer kissed his hand before placing it on his pal's coffin as he left Manchester Cathedral, where Oasis hit Live Forever had reduced mourners to tears. Earlier, thousands lined the streets to pay their respect to their world champion son, who died last month, aged just 46. It's such a loss, an icon of sport and of British culture. Let's get reaction from another legend, former European boxing champion Spencer Oliver. Spencer, welcome to Talk Breakfast. How well did you know Ricky?
Yeah, I knew him very well, Mark. Thanks for having us on. It was an emotional day yesterday. Me and Ricky go back way back to the 90s. Actually, we were boxing together around that time, and then my career finished in the late 90s, and I covered all of Ricky's career. Travelled everywhere with him, over to Vegas, and we had some great times in boxing and out of boxing as well. He was the guy next door. He was the people's champion, and he was just a lovely human being. It's the sad loss, and what a beautiful send-off he had yesterday. If there is such a thing, I think that the turnout he had was quite incredible. You had the likes of, as you said, Liam Gallagher, we had Freddie Flintoff there, you had Wayne Rooney there, Brian Giggs, just to name a few. Just showed you what a guy Ricky Hatton really was. People loved to be around him. He was full of humour. A big laugh to be around, and it is a sad loss. It really is.
And he had cut through. He went far beyond his sport of boxing, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He like I say, he touched with everyone. Ricky was, because he was a guy that his feet never left the ground. He was a kid from a council estate, and he never forgot his roots. And I think that people sort of connected with that. He was that guy that he liked to go down his local social club, have a pint after filling the O2 Arena, or taking 30,000 fans over to Vegas to watch him box. The likes of Floyd Mayweather. So, yeah, it was a very, very emotional. No one expected it. We all know that Ricky had troubles coping with life after boxing. I think that mental health was a big part of his life.
Yeah.
And he talks about that quite regularly. And we all thought that, look, Ricky had been through his dark times. We knew that, but we thought he was coming through the other side. It was such a shock to everybody, not just in the boxing world, but everybody close to him and around him. So there were a lot of emotions in the cathedral yesterday.
Most definitely. Given his incredibly colourful and charismatic personality, Spencer, it's easy to forget what a gifted athlete he was.
Absolutely. I remember Ricky going right back to the amateur days. Like, he burst onto the scene, winning the ABAs at a young, tender age of 18. And you thought, wow, this kid is going to be he's going to be big. We never expected him to be as big and become a two-weight world champion and you know, touch the nation the way that he did. But he had an incredible career, like I say, through the amateurs, you know, and through the professional ranks. He was one of those guys that's just confidence and oozed class as well.
Well, your class, Spencer, it's been a privilege to have you on the show, and we can only unite in our grief at the passing of this incredibly special man at such a young age, and what a contribution he's made, not just to sport, but to British life. Spencer Oliver, thank you for joining us, former European boxing champion. There you go. They don't make them like that anymore. I think we should all go and have a Guinness tonight to remember that top man. Do you remember Matthew Torbett, how he'd basically get really fit for the fight, go and win it, and then straight on the Guinness and let it all hang out for a few months and then back in the ring again?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, Ricky Hatton was a normal bloke off the estate that lived out his wildest dreams, and he really was the people's champion. He built communities like no other boxer I've seen since. And on a more serious note, suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 and under the age of 35. Ricky had his struggles after boxing, and I think there has to be a strategy in place for sports people who don't get that rush from crowds anymore, what they do after retirement. And also, the sooner we have a men's health strategy in this country and truly talk about the issues that men face, the better we all will.
There's thousands of Ricky Hattons out there, many of whom are not celebrities, who are struggling, Peter.
I couldn't agree more with Matthew. I think we have let this issue fester, and I think it has been men's detriment and our society's detriment. And more important, I thought it was a really good point made, that actually he kept his feet to the ground and remembered where he came from. That's a huge point.
Lads, love having you in the studio. Come back and see us soon, Peter Barnes and Matthew Torbett. Next up, do the fat jabs work? We'll be asking Christopher Biggins who's on them.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed. Very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast, a very big hour to come. Following a better-than-expected party conference, are the Tories back? Jeremy Clarkson has said the Conservatives are talking sense again. But can you forgive 14 years of failure and betrayal? Meanwhile, 2.5 million people are now on the fat jabs, but do they work? And is this the answer to Britain's obesity crisis? I'll be asking comedy legend Christopher Biggins, who's on the fat jabs himself. And the illegal migrant who threatened to kill Nigel Farage is to be sentenced next week. Will he get as long as Lucy Connolly? I have my doubts. And an extraordinary debate has blown up on the show this morning with one of my previous guests arguing that Nigel Farage needs media training, that he's not ready for power, and that he is a dangerous chancer. What say you? 0344 499 1000. Gazza's not happy. Oh, Mark, it's such a shame that your guests can't see beyond their ideological parties. The aim of being in government is to make the country better, which both parties have failed to do over 100 years. It's very clear we need the Fabians and Blair-style politics out. I'd prefer reform to try once and fail rather than the recurrent nightmare that we are currently in. So is it reform all the way for you? 0344 499 1000. Or is Nigel Farage a dangerous chancer? It's all about your opinions. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. A big hour to come. Biggins. He's shrinking by the second because of the fat jabs. We'll get his inside story on those. Lots more to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. And let's do that in the company of the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, one of my favourite journalists, Kate Ferguson. Good morning, Kate.
Morning, happy to be here.
Surprisingly, things went quite well for the Conservatives last week.
Yes, so we had the Conservative Party conference, which we were expecting to be a bit of a morgue, really, after the awful year they've had, or year and a half, really. But Kemi Badenoch did pull a big rabbit out of the hat with her big flagship speech at the end, and unveiled this kind of pledge to cut £47 billion of spending and spend a bunch of that abolishing stamp duty, this tax on buying a house, which basically everyone loathes. So that certainly got the party faithful up on their feet on Wednesday morning. I was in the room. They were cheering. They were very, very pleased with that announcement. But, you know, the big question, I mean, I know Jeremy Clarkson's written about it in today's Sun, but the big question is, as ever, are people listening to the Tories again? Are they going to give them a second chance?
Well, that's right. I mean, this is supposed good conference that the Tories had, this resurgence. Is it just being drummed up by the media? Does it fit the narrative that it's time for them to be popular again, but the public are somewhere quite different?
Yes, I mean, like, you do always get this after conference season where the leader does a big speech and everyone says, have they clawed it back?
Even
Starmer had this sort of coverage. It just, you know, not to do down my colleagues in the brilliant Fleet Street, but it is just part of the narrative people do. Look, I think Kemi Badenoch did do something interesting on Wednesday, which is she actually unveiled, you know, hold on to your hat, some policy. Yeah. And she actually got up and made an argument. And she tried and did put some clear blue water between herself and Labour and also Reform. She's saying that the Tories are going to fight the next election on the economy, on being strict on public spending and on tax cuts. That's quite safe territory for the Tories in terms of their party base. But, you know, as I say, the public don't really believe the Tories yet, because under them, public spending went up wildly. There weren't really many tax cuts. Tax rises rose to their highest since the Second World War. So it's all about whether or not Kemi can get out there and sell this argument rather than just making it to her base in front of a few hundred people in a hall in not Birmingham, Manchester.
I mean, this is the issue, is that they're making all the right noises now, and in many policy areas they are to the right of reform. But it's a question of whether people buy it, whether people believe that they'll deliver that if they were to be granted 5 years in power.
Exactly. I mean, I think the only place the Tories could have gone was this economic sand that they tend to be safer on. They've got to make the case that they can rein in public spending because, it's out of control under Labour. It was out of control under the last Tories, and Reform have not yet laid out really any plans for cutting it back.
Well, is money Reform's Achilles heel at the moment? Because clearly they are robust, they are unassailable on immigration, I think it's fair to say. Because notwithstanding that, again, the Tories' policies are quite bold on immigration, but people believe Nigel Farage. He's been at Dover for years now talking about the boat crossings. So, but on the economy, is that a weak spot for them, Reform?
Yeah, talk to any pollster, any expert, they'd all say the economy is a weak spot for Reform. Reform probably know this themselves. They haven't really come forward with that stuff yet. That we're not expecting them to come forward with much economic policy until much nearer the election. But what they have said suggests they're going to be quite big spending. They've talked about lifting the two-child benefit cap. So that is a kind of welfareist, more kind of big state spending area.
Nationalise a few industries.
Exactly. This tends to be more kind of like Labour economics. We haven't seen them flesh it out, and I would not be surprised if towards the election we start seeing them kind of ditch some early pledges as they try to hone their economic offer.
How much political legroom do they have to ditch policies that they'd previously announced if they are deemed to be unaffordable?
Yeah, loads, in my humble opinion. I mean, look, people say you shouldn't make promises you can't keep, but I think with Reform, people are mainly interested in that party because of the personality of Nigel and their position on borders. They haven't been paying too much attention to their economic policies yet. There's still, 3.5 years
and
of
they'll be
election.
aware of the criticism about their economic plans.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to kind of finesse them, ditch some policies, come up with others, I think there's totally scope and flexibility to do that among the public.
Is it because they're trying to attract two types of voters, which would be the socially conservative working class constituencies of the Red Wall, and then the sort of aspirational southeast who want low taxes and basically Thatcherism?
Yeah, I mean, welcome to British politics, right? This is the coalition that wins you elections, where you want to get kind of a working class base. Often that's kind of Red Wall-y, Northern Midlands, but you also want that kind of southern middle class money to spend. Farage, like all political leaders, wants those two wings to stick with him, and at the moment we're just waiting to see how he tries to square that circle.
Well, listen, I know that the Sun newspaper and the Sun on Sunday are so connected to the readership, right? It's all about the readers, and it's like what matters to them, and we are the same here at Talk, and that's why I want to bring Eric into this conversation. Eric is in Kent. Hello, Eric. Top of the morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Nigel Farage, is he the real deal or a dangerous chancer?
Well, good morning, Mark, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate that. The reason why I wanted to call and speak to you is because I've been listening to your show, and I listen to people down the pub and down the cafe.
Yeah.
And I keep on hearing all the time that Nigel Farage is the last hope. He's the last chance for democracy. He's the last chance to get Britain back on the road to a brighter future. But I have this feeling, this sense that the amount in responsibility now that's on Nigel Farage's shoulders is growing exponentially. My thoughts are this. What happens in the unfortunate circumstance that either he fails or he doesn't deliver on his promises? I've got one of two things will happen in that instance. I think one, and it's terrible, but I think there could be mass violence on the streets. Yeah. Or second, complete voter apathy, where people just literally give up. They give up on the system and they go, right, nothing that we vote for comes through, and I give up on the system.
Eric, you raise a very good point, and stay with us if you can. Kate Ferguson, that is the responsibility on the shoulders of Nigel Farage. If there was an election tomorrow, Reform would likely win or be the biggest party in a hung parliament. And if they don't deliver, well, they'll be held to pay. At that point, as Eric says, people will start to think, do you know what? Voting doesn't work.
Actually, that's such a good point. Expectations of Nigel Farage and what Reform can do are kind of stampeding ahead. Yeah. And there's a danger that gets kind of out of control over the next few years. I could just give you an example. When they were talking about unveiling their really tough borders policy, they were talking about being able to kind of stop the boats in a matter of weeks. I mean, look, with the best will in the world, I just don't think anyone believes that's kind of possible. Now, you can get tough, you probably can stop those boats, but in a matter of weeks, it just doesn't feel plausible. So there's a danger that you over-promise and cannot but help under-deliver. And as you say, there's huge discontent with the political elite. once Nigel Farage becomes part of that political elite and inevitably people become discontented with him, do they give up on kind of party politics altogether?
Eric, although I do hear what you're saying, I just wonder whether a lot of people watching and listening who support Nigel Farage will just think, well, do you know what? Things couldn't be worse than they currently are. If Nigel can make things 10 or 15% better, I'll take that.
Well, listen, I totally accept that. But what's worse, 15% better or complete voter apathy? Nigel Farage has got this expectation on he's the saviour of everything. And listen, I have my hands together looking at the sky thinking, I hope this man is the real deal. I really do. But, you know, this man needs a lot of time in office. He needs a great team around him to even achieve half of what he's promising. And I just fear that the more he promises, the more chance of him under delivering. And I just think, for me, we just need to set the expectation right. Just set the expectation. This is what I can do as PM. This is the amount of time that I'm going to need to do it, and this is going to be the results out the back end of it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you should be his spin doctor, Eric, because I've actually been dreaming, Kate Ferguson, of politicians at election time saying to the public, do you know something? We have systemic problems. We have a very bloated bureaucracy that's going to make it difficult for us to execute our policy quickly, and the country's broke.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people are impatient. They've been promised a lot. Politicians have under-delivered. And actually, your caller is so right. Nigel does need to be more than just Nigel Farage. He needs to build this team. He needs to have the policy expertise to be able, if he ever comes into power, to be able to enact these pledges. It's far bigger than one man.
Most definitely. And, you know, our democracy definitely rests on, you know, should reform UK win, that they're able to deliver their manifesto promises, because actually we want that of any governing party, don't we? Because otherwise people lose faith.
Yeah, you have a mandate, it's there to deliver it, and that's what your majority, your 5 years in power, is there for.
What about, are we back to square one with the Conservative right, you know, the small c Conservative voters, which is that the Tories recover ground, have a bit more credibility about economic management, plus, of course, you know, decades of experience in power. Do we see the vote on the right squeezed once again?
Well, this is what Labour are hoping and praying for, right? If you're Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, you'd be kind of in Downing Street this week praying to the gods that actually the Tories have a bit of a comeback, because they won so big at the last election because of that split vote, Tory reform, and that's what let Labour kind of sweep to power in that red tidal wave. Now, interestingly, Labour have been talking up just one man, Farage, Farage, Farage. That's all we heard from the PM at his conference. But he kind of really needs the Tories to make a comeback in order to squeeze the right. As I say, Kemi's had very good write-ups the last few days. You know, lots of think pieces. Is this the Tories' big comeback? Let's see, because I do think there is a real reluctance among the public to really listen to them yet and forgive them.
Briefly, Eric, is there life in the old dog yet? Can the Tories come back?
I think there is Dillinger, mate. They are gone, gone and gone. There is no way back. Nobody believes a word that they say now. Nobody believes anything that they promise on immigration. I think reform will swallow them whole at the next election.
Yikes. Eric, a brilliant call. Call me again soon, 0344 499 1000. Your views echoed by Graham in Wrexham, who says, good morning, Mark. Nobody with half a brain believes the Tories. Are they coming back? No, not for a long time. This is like you're in the swimming pool, you wee in the shallow end, get out and get back in at the deep end. Nonsense. As long as the MPs remain the same old Tory MPs, they must stay out of power. I mean, that's the issue for the Tories, isn't it? The leadership might take the party to the right, and certainly Kemi is a natural Conservative, isn't she? And she's on the right of the party, perhaps an heir to Thatcher. But many that will sit behind her on those backbenches are not.
Exactly. Actually, the ghost of Thatcher loomed large over that conference. You literally had her old dresses kind of on display. Kemi very much trying to channel the Iron Lady. But, you know, for each generation, a party needs to have their own confidence, their own leadership.
Yeah.
And maybe they need to spend a bit longer figuring out who they are now, rather than leaning constantly on Thatcher's ghost.
Most definitely. Before we let you go, very interesting story. The migrant who threatened to kill Nigel Farage has been convicted of this crime, faces sentencing next week. If he gets less than Lucy Conley, this is going to blow up into a big political story, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this case is so outrageous. This is a migrant who I think Nigel Farage documented on his that he was coming over to this country, I think from Sweden on a small boat. And then he made threats to kill Nigel Farage on his TikTok. And then when he was in custody awaiting trial, he continued to make TikToks, basically really threatening ones, from his prison cell. This is exactly what people think is wrong with this country. Why is this person able to get here in the first place? Why is he being so violent and threatening once here? And is the state able to stop people like this? Is the big kind of question of our age, really.
Yeah, I mean, what are the sort of, do you think, main political headlines or areas that you'll be looking at in tomorrow's paper?
Tomorrow's paper? Well, we're going to do more probably on this China spy story. Yeah. I know we've not touched on that today, but that's going to explode in Parliament on Monday, this allegations that members of Keir Starmer's government helped collapse a trial into the China spy ring. And there's a couple of kind of standalone stories that should get the kind of blood boiling of our readers. And also, you know, this weekend is a huge weekend because we've got the Gaza peace process happening. Yeah. The hostages hopefully being released in the next couple of days. It looks like Donald Trump's going to go over and visit Israel. So this is a hugely momentous day, not just, you know, for Israel-Palestine and that conflict, but for the world, really, because when there is war in the Middle East, we all feel that on our streets.
Most definitely. I can't wait for tomorrow's paper. The political editor of The Sun on Sunday is Kate Ferguson, and Kate will catch up hopefully in a week's time. Fantastic conversation. Well, next up, we're going to keep this going. You are so angry about Nigel Farage and this discussion about whether he's an agitator, whether he's a crank, whether he's a chancer. So we'll debate whether Nigel is ready for power next.
Here, people like Starmer, they want the state to make sure that individuals know that the state is more powerful than them, and they can stick that idea, that notion, where the sun don't shine, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, very well said. I mean, what they want to do is actually own us, manipulate us, and control every single thing we do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Nigel Farage the future for Britain or a dangerous chance? Norman is in Leicestershire. Good morning, Norman.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm Stormin Norman. I'm very well. And I want to know what you think about this, because I've had several guests on today that have thrown a bit of shade in the direction of Nigel Farage. They say he's not ready for power, that he's not a Democrat, he's against free speech, and that he's a dangerous chancer. What say you?
He's not a dangerous chancer. He's, as far as I can see, he tells it like he sees it. Now, we've had 20 years of dangerous chancers and numpties running this country.
Yes.
And the one we've got now, this is an old engineering saying, by the way, I would not pay him in bent rusty washers, because he is totally and utterly useless. Sorry, Karen.
That is a great bit of... do you see you would not pay him in, what is it, bent, rusty...
washers.
Brilliant.
I mean, he's giving everything away. There's the thing about China at the moment. I'm not quite sure, because I've not read up on it and all that. But
well, it looks like Number 10 may have suppressed evidence that would have seen 2 Chinese spies convicted, which is a major national security issue.
Yes. Now, if I had suppressed evidence, I would be dragged up before the courts very quickly, and I don't know the technical terms, but I would have my collar felt and they'd be chucking me in jail. Now, why isn't he having his collar felt and being chucked out of tent number 10?
Well, I mean, it's something that could blow up in his face. I suspect there's enough smoke and mirrors within the Number 10 machine that they'll manage to wriggle out of this one. But it looks to me like, once again, this Labour government working, Norman, against the British national interest, just as we saw with the Chagos Islands sell-off. Can I ask you about whether, is there a risk that Nigel Farage is over-promising and may under-deliver?
There is always a risk with what any politician tells you.
Yeah.
Now, the risk that I can see, and it's the way I see it, we're moving illegal immigrants into HMOs, House of Multiple Occupancies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And every couple of years or so, you get a letter through the letterbox which says, fill this form in if you want to vote. Now, once you're in a house, you get the form, you fill the form in, your name's on there. There's 5 or 6 votes in one house. Now, if you try and chuck out however many illegal immigrants that he said, there will be rioting on the streets, because it'll be nearly, if it's not too late now, it'll be too late by the time as Nigel gets in.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know where we go.
Is there a concern? Yeah, is there a concern? I mean, I took a caller earlier who said that actually, if Nigel is not able to deliver, maybe because the bureaucracy, the blob, will thwart his plans. Maybe it's a lack of experience in government. He said that they'll be hell to pay.
They will, yes. But, I mean, the other day, apparently 125 came across on one dinghy.
Yeah. I know, a super dinghy, a special brand new incarnation of the dinghies from China that are enormous.
I'm laughing, but I shouldn't be. Now, apparently, I'm not sure how much it is, £48, £49 a week, they give these people spending money. Now, in 1 week, in one boat, we give 125 people 48 quid a week. That's just spending money. That doesn't include housing and feeding and everything else that they get. Now, I'm a pensioner. I made sure I got a good pension, i.e. company pension and government pension, and I'm still paying tax. And the whispers are going around that this, whatever you like to call her, is going to tax us pensioners again. So I've wasted my time and effort.
Definitely, there's no reward for saving, there's no reward for working hard, there's no reward for aspiration. Norman, really enjoyed your company this morning. Please call me again soon. Fascinating set of points you've had to make there. John's in Bradford. Can Nigel Farage deliver, John?
Well, it all depends, doesn't it? I mean, what you've got to understand is when this government goes out, there's going to be a hell of a mess. And, we're going to be virtually bankrupt. The other thing he's got is the blob and the trade unions. He's going to have one hell of a problem getting policies through with them against him. And also, I think that he's got to be honest with people. He's got to say, look, we're going to try and do this. We'll do everything we can to do it with your support, and be open and honest with people what he can and can't do. At the moment, there's not much meat on the bones. He needs to get in there now and start stating what he's going to do, how he's going to do it, and the difficulties he's going to have. And if you're honest with people, they'll vote for you.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We've got so many messages to back that up, I've got to say. So, for example, John, have a listen to this. Reform, says Simon, well, they can overpromise. If they deliver just 10 to 20%, they will have delivered way more than Labour, the Tories and the Lib Dems in their entire 30-plus years in charge. We need a fresh start with reform. How about this from Jason, who says, Mark, Nigel Farage is not ready for power, but he will be. The issue is that Labour and the Tories hate him. So when he's in power, the civil servants will make it impossible for him to do anything out of sheer spite. David in Worthing has said all parties are so scared of Farage. It's funny. They'll say and do anything to try and stop him. The people have had enough of it. Farage will be Prime Minister, and I can't wait, says David. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's true. I mean, I vote Reform. I'm standing as a Reform candidate if I'm selected, and I believe in their policies. But as I say again, the blob, the House of Lords and the unions are going to do everything possible to block it. And he's going to have to make some very serious decisions. I mean, if he follows, let's give an example. Look at Argentina. They were a basket case. They put a right-wing man in, and now they're running a trade surplus. This is the sort of policies that we need. And Nigel's going to have to stand up, and he's going to have to be perfectly honest with people and say how he's going to do it.
Is he a control freak, though? Is he a diva? Is he all about himself? Is it all about Nigel?
Well, I'm going to make one criticism. Policies are coming from the top downwards when they should go from the bottom upwards.
That's very interesting. Why do you say that? Do you have the impression that Reform UK is a little undemocratic, a bit autocratic?
Well, I wouldn't say undemocratic. I say a little bit dictatorial. I mean, I've sent policies off. I've sent a big policy off for the NHS, which would sort all these problems out. And having worked in the NHS for 18 years and local authority for 21 years, it's a very good policy. I haven't even had acknowledgement of it.
Yeah, that's quite shocking, isn't it? Listen, John, what an interesting set of points you've made as well. We'll speak soon. 03444991000. Nadia, what great considered thoughts from your caller Norman in Leicester. What he said is absolutely right, in my opinion. How about this from Dan in Kent? Mark, Nigel will not be the next PM. Just like Marine Le Pen, the socialist elite will intervene. The question is, Mark, how long the patience lasts. A great show. Thank you very much for that, Dan. Steve is a bit worried about Reform's strategy. He says, Mark, the problem with exposing your tactics too early is you give your opposition time to produce countermeasures. The blob will be in overdrive. And how about this from Dee, who I think speaks for many viewers and listeners to Talk Breakfast today. And Dee says, Mark, the most important thing is that Nigel Farage tries. Not one of our elected leaders has listened to the electorate. If Nigel Farage listens and tries, we will support him. Stop listening to the siren voices from the left. I think that's a very good point, Dee. I think that whatever Nigel says, yes, he'll have trouble executing it from number 10 because of the blob and because of the media and because of the public institutions and woke celebrities. It will be the most attacked government in history. But we know that what Nigel Farage says, he means and he believes. Why? Because he's been saying those things for years and years and years. He's paid a very high personal price for that. And surely he deserves a crack of the whip. We're going to continue this conversation after the break. And I've got another question for you. Is the new leader of the Green Party right that women can have a penis? That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Can Nigel Farage deliver for the country? This from Els Bells in Shropshire. Good morning, Mark. When I'm trying to get a stain out of an item of clothing, I try a product. When that doesn't work, I try something else, and so on until the stain has disappeared. So I tried Tory, I tried Labour, and guess what? None of it worked. So I'm trying the new one. Why? Because nobody really knows if it's going to work until they try it. And then in capital letters, Els Bells says, we have had enough. A very considered message from John in Norfolk, who says, good morning, Mark. I listen with interest how people try to push right against left. He says, we need to take the best parts from the whole spectrum. What's wrong with nationalising some parts of the country whilst exploiting the capitalist opportunities elsewhere? Why can't we have a small state but also provide support where required? The left and right mantra is where we have gone wrong. And Sarah in Morden says, good morning, Mark. Things are going to get worse for everyone when Rachel Thieves circumvents Labour's pledge not to raise VAT by decreasing the VAT registration threshold instead. By reducing it from 90k to 30k, small businesses and sole traders will be forced to charge 20% extra for goods and services. Everything is going to be more expensive. No one can be worse than these lying con artists. Well, I've got to say, a lot of these politicians do live in a parallel universe. They don't even seem to be aware of scientific facts and human biology. Let's take a listen to the new leader of the Green Party speaking to Piers Morgan this week.
Can a woman have a penis?
Yes. It's going to take them a long time on the National Health Service to get rid of it, but that's another separate problem.
All right. I think we'll leave it on a woman can have a penis. People can
I think you're lacking nuance and complexity about a pretty complicated
Not really. You couldn't have been clearer.
I'm clear, because actually when you want to look at the science...
You were crystal clear. Ask a simple question.
But you're laughing at it, which I think demeans trans people.
Absolutely ridiculous.
What have you got against trans people? Why are you punching down? Why are you not saying
nothing against
the real
trans
problem
people?
in this
I've already
country?
told you that I think trans people...
You sound like you have a huge problem with trans people.
No. It sounds to me like you don't understand what a woman is, which I think is a huge problem for someone leading a party in this country.
A woman is a gender.
Sorry?
You said what's a woman?
No,
a woman is a
is
gender.
A biological
and gender
female.
is complicated.
No.
Gender is a spectrum.
It's not complicated. A woman is a biological
gender a spectrum? Is it that binary?
Do you think people are born male and female?
Not necessarily.
Oh, for God's sake.
I think it's more complicated than that.
It's not more complicated, Zach.
Well, it's not more complicated than that if you're a TV show host who wants to make it binary and ridiculous.
Zach, you're going to have to work
if you want to have a nuanced
Let
conversation that actually reflects science,
you know, when I asked you if you
want
to be prime minister, there is not a cat in hell's chance of you ever becoming prime minister if you don't know what a woman is. The UK Supreme Court has made it crystal clear.
But that's not the Supreme Court's job. The Supreme Court's job is to look at legislation
lay down the law
and then
of
make a legal ruling.
OK. So you know more than the Supreme Court?
Well, yes, actually, in this case, yes, I do.
It is not complicated. There are two sexes. I've got a cat called Harry, and when he goes to the vet, they don't ask the cat whether he's a boy or a girl today. He is a boy, and quite a randy one at that, let me tell you. He's a handful, just like his owner. Let's get a reaction to this madness from Anne in Gwynedd in Wales. Anne, can a woman have a penis?
No, but early on in your programme this morning, you gave a tweet that Nigel Farage had put out, that the National Trust were going to put machines with tampons into the men's toilets.
That's correct. And by the way, just to add insult to injury, Anne, vegan tampons, whatever that means.
Oh, well, whatever. Well, I looked at the date, and it's the 11th of October, and honestly, I really thought it was April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be vulgar, but how can a man insert a tampon into his penis?
I consider myself to be physically quite a dynamic human being, but I couldn't pull it off.
Well, exactly. And three things came to mind. One was Plank of the Week, and the other one was Go Woke, Go Broke.
Yes.
And I'm afraid membership to the National Trust is cancelled by me.
Really?
Comedians can have a field day, but the people who haven't got up early haven't seen that tweet. So, honestly, I can't stop. I can't stop laughing. It's pathetic.
I mean, how could a man insert a tampon into himself? I don't think it's going to go through the Willy Winkle unless he's very blessed in that department and has the volume man. But maybe there's a few other orifices he could explore.
Well, I honestly don't know. I mean, I did biology. I'm not a doctor, but it's ridiculous.
Maybe he could he go into his ear? I mean, we are living in a parallel universe, aren't we? Just to be like, offer a little balance on this one. What about someone that's a woman, right, born a biological female, who just feels like she's a man, and so she decides that she was Rebecca and now she's going to be Steve? Is she not entitled to have sanitary products when she goes into the men's room as someone that identifies as a man?
Personally, if that man wants to be a woman...
it's the other way round. The woman wants to be a man, I think.
All right, the woman...
well,
whatever. I mean, it's too complicated for me. I hope he never suffers from menstrual cramps, because he'd go back to being the other sex.
Yes, it's a very, very good point, isn't it? And what about childbirth as well? Good luck with that.
Exactly.
And do you think this madness will end? I mean, you've got that tweet from Nigel Farage, and for those that don't know it, he tweeted the following: "The National Trust has put vegan tampons in men's toilets. God help us." Now, that post has gone viral. Do you think that the silent majority are eventually going to prevail over this, crazy ideology?
Honestly, apart from laughing, I'm speechless. I mean, does the man think he's a lesbian? I just don't. I can't get my head around it. Honestly, it's April Fool's Day all over again.
It most definitely is. Anne, really enjoyed your company, and thank you for the chuckle, because if you didn't laugh, you would cry, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Have a lovely Saturday. Brilliant stuff. There you go. Can I just say that I'm getting so many messages about Nigel Farage. Nigel is our only hope, says Stevie, and that is something that seems to resonate for many of you, that yes, he's not perfect. Yes, they don't have experience of government, but they can't be worse than the uni party of the last 3 decades. Robert is in Nottingham. Good morning, Robert. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning. How are you?
I'm really, really well. Lovely to have your company. What do you make of this debate around Nigel Farage? People are arguing that he's not ready for power, that he's going to overpromise and underdeliver, that the party's not democratic enough, it's a one-man band. What do you think?
Well, they've got to hit the ground running, haven't they, like Trump did?
Yes.
Do you remember when Trump was elected? I think it was the day after. He was signing all these...
executive orders.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Reform have got to do. They've got to do a lot of homework, a lot of spade work.
Yeah.
To do that first. I've followed Farage for many years. I'm a big supporter of him. Is he perfect? No. Is Reform perfect? No. But they're the best shot we've got. That's the way I look at it. They're the best chance we've got of getting Britain back into shape again.
Do you worry that Nigel isn't managing expectations enough, given the fact that they will face the bureaucracy, the blob, the media will be against them, Robert, and that the country's broke? Do you think at some point Nigel just needs to say to everyone, calm down, it's going to be very difficult if we win?
Well, I've got a lot of confidence in Nigel. I think he's very savvy. I mean, he's had a lot of experience with the EU, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And, I predicted months ago, a year or two ago, that they're going to smear him. They're really going to... we ain't seen nothing yet, because the other part, the main parties, Tories and Labour, they're scared stiff of Reform now. So they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink, aren't they? At him and at Reform. I think we've got some very intelligent guys like Zier and Richard Tice in the background as well, or working in the background. But I think Nigel, he's got to make sure they operate as a team. I think they've got a lot of... I think we've got to bear in mind also they're a very new party, and, the sheer logistics of setting the whole thing up across UK, at branch level, is a huge task, isn't it?
Well, it is, and funnily enough, Nigel Farage said that he thinks an election will come sooner rather than later, potentially 2027. But perhaps, Robert, be careful what you wish for. It wouldn't hurt them to have 3.5 years, the full term of this Parliament, to tool up and get ready for power.
I think that's absolutely true. I think that, the longer the better in a way. I mean, I know we've got to suffer this government for another 4 years, God forbid. I mean, I actually put on my Facebook yesterday, why does this government hate its citizens so much?
Yeah.
That seems to be what's going on. And I think, as I say, I think Nigel, he knows what's coming, I do think, because your earlier caller that's standing for reform, they've got to be a bit more democratic, I think. But also, I think Nigel knows what works and what doesn't work, and the knives will be out, metaphorically speaking, to get at him from all quarters. Because he's leading in the polls. They're leading in the polls, aren't they? And they're going to get at that.
One thing's for sure: we know they need time. They need a big majority as well, don't they?
They absolutely they do. Absolutely, they
because
do.
It ain't going to work if they've got a wafer-thin majority. It's going to be difficult for them to roll out their package of reforms, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is our electoral system, really, first past the post and all that sort of thing. But yeah, and I think a lot's going to also depend on, I wouldn't, it grieves me to say this, but I wouldn't write the Tories off completely. I think they're going to take a long-term view. They've got a lot of organisation behind them because they used to sort of organising these sort of campaigns, whereas Reform, they're the new kids on the block. But that doesn't mean to say they're no good at it.
No, and they've got resources as well. They've still got donors. They've got that sort of experience of government and credibility in some circles. And of course, the risk that the right, once against, the right divides itself and gives Keir Starmer another 5 years, which no one wants.
But the other thing I was going to say, they've got to change the system. I mean, this started under Blair, where they brought all sorts of acts in, and David Starkey at his channel had some really good stuff on this, where he's saying, that we've got 444 quangos now, and ministers their hands are tied. They can't do what they want to do because all these experts now are sort of enshrined in law. So. And I think was it Churchill who said you want your experts on tap but not on top.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, we've not had that recently, have we? Robert, really enjoyed your call. Please call again soon. 0344 499 1000. That fascinating set of points. A very measured response there from Robert. Good morning, Mark, says Nick. I do wish people would stop saying that Reform is Nigel Farage. Reform are so much more than that. They've got some amazing people like our friend Dr. David Bull, Richard Tice, and of course Zia Youssef. With a massive group of brand new MPs behind them, this leadership team can take them anywhere. Brilliant stuff. And finally, at this point, Simon. Mark, they'll try anything to stop Nigel. Anything. Labour and the Tories will propose lots more ideas in their manifesto. Non-legally binding. Parties can promise the earth. Labour and Tories have had their time. Reform, a fresh start, listening to the people. Well, I'll be listening to you because we'll get more of your thoughts on this next.
just throw out, is Donald Trump the greatest politician in the world?
I just retweeted that.
I mean, this is, you know, how do you look at it? The cynics are going, oh, it's not going to work. The man's brought these people to the table that everybody thought was impossible.
He's done what nobody else has been able to do.
Completely.
And he's done what he said he would do. And, of course, people who will be critical of him will say, well, he didn't do it as quickly as he said he would do it. But, you know, I think the thing is that you can't keep deriding the guy when he keeps delivering on what he said he was going to do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, Mark. Great to see you on Talk, says Stephen Thirsk. I used to watch your show on another channel. Interesting segment this morning with your two guests, Peter and Matthew. My instrument for judging policy is to look at what Alistair Campbell is supporting and go the polar opposite direction. Great show. Well, Steve, thank you for that, and thank you for coming over to Talk. It's great to be back at the home of common sense. Thank you all for having me. I'm back tomorrow from 6 till 10 with a very big show. It's the 100-year anniversary of Mrs. Thatcher's, well, she would have been 100, and we'll be on Monday. So we're going to have a look at her legacy. Would she support Reform UK right now? Well, let's have a little bit of nostalgia in the company of Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer for today's Retro Rewind. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. It's amazing, isn't it? So Margaret Thatcher would be turning 100 if she was still alive. I'm going to take you back to the year 1984, obviously with the Tory conference this year. 84, Margaret Thatcher was our Prime Minister, and if you remember the IRA bombing the Grand Hotel in Brighton the night before she was due to make that kind of keynote speech. And, you know, most of us woke up and we only had, I think, the BBC Breakfast News to find out the news, and I saw, you know, the picture of Norman Tebbit being removed from the rubble of the Grand Hotel. The most amazing thing is, later on, the following day, she went on stage and she made this speech. Take a look at it.
Well, let's take a listen.
The bomb attack on the Grand Hotel early this morning was first and foremost an inhuman, undiscriminating attempt to massacre innocent, unsuspecting men and women staying in Brighton for our Conservative conference. Our first thoughts must at once be for those who died and for those who are now in hospital recovering from their injuries.
Extraordinary. She'd had about 2 hours of sleep and an attempt on her life and that of her government. She gets on stage and she makes that speech.
Isn't it incredible? And she was still writing the speech when the bomb went off. So she was very lucky to escape. Obviously, she was the primary target, but she escapes because she was still at work. Had she been in bed asleep, it would have been a different story. But we all remember, I think, you know, when we were around, we remember hearing that news and seeing those images. A real defining moment, actually, in politics, and certainly within the 80s as well.
It really was, and you know that it doesn't matter whether you agree or don't agree with any government in power, but to assault our democracy like that is truly shocking.
Other stuff happening. We had the miners' strike rumbling on throughout the whole year. Do you remember it?
I do. It was relentless. It was on the news every night. I got quite bored of it, actually.
It was just on and on and on and on and on. Something else you may remember. I remember sitting down with my parents. You remember on a Sunday evening we all used to watch the same programmes. And,
yes.
It was live from Her Majesty's Sunday evening variety show. Jimmy Tarbutt was the host. This one particular Sunday evening, Tommy Cooper. And I remember, you know, we were all looking forward to watching Tommy Cooper. It was like a family thing, you know, to sit in front of the TV. And he died. I mean, you know, he died on stage in the middle of his performance. Lots of people laughed. I mean, we all laughed, thinking that it was part of the performance. And I remember my dad saying, you know, this is weird. They went straight to an ad break, and you can see the curtain closed, but you could see his feet kind of peering, but, you know, he was basically lying on the stage. And because we didn't have rolling news, we didn't find out until the following day that he'd actually passed away. And he'd had a massive heart attack live on television. And it's one of those moments, one of those shocking moments that goes down in history. Again, another one of those moments that you remember watching it.
And you don't get much live telly these days. That's why I love Talk, because it's live the whole time, and you know, it's real, and it's. But you know, so much TV is pre-recorded now.
You're right.
And a show like Live from Her Majesty, they wouldn't, you know, the raw variety, they wouldn't put it out live again, would they?
I don't think they would. I think you're exactly right. I don't think there's one completely live television show now. I mean, that was...
You got the news and that's about it.
Completely live, wasn't it? Yeah, like, I mean, an entertainment show.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, isn't it? It was a appointment to watch.
Well, I was sat there watching, so you were watching it as it played out?
As a kid.
And me too. I was watching it, because millions of people were.
It's what we did.
Probably 15, 16 million people watching. And I remember watching it, and he started this sort of snoring sound.
Yes.
And it sounded like, you know, this was part of the act. And he was so hilarious that anything he did, you were laughing.
Yeah, anything could happen. So it's not unfeasible.
Can I be indelicate and say, though, what a way to go?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're, you know, it's a tragic passing, but the guy passed to the sound of people's laughter and doing what he loved most, which is entertaining people.
And what we loved watching, you know, so incredible stuff. Incredible
Elton John always says that he wants to, like, just pop his clogs mid Candle in the Wind on stage, you know. He wants to go out, you know, just doing what he loves most.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's an incredible story. Oh, my goodness. A rather important birth in 1984.
Prince Harry was born.
Whatever happened to him?
He was born Prince Henry Charles Albert Davids. His real name's Henry, but he was lovingly referred to as Harry. You know, Princess Diana was only 23.
Astonishing.
Isn't that amazing? That blows my mind. She was 23.
We thought of her as so mature, but actually she was just really a young girl.
She was so young.
And that was her second child.
That was the second one. And then the whole kind of the chaos around the Lindo wing started, with subsequent births. It became a regular...
It's the place to have a baby, wasn't it?
The place to have a baby, all the press hanging out outside. Also the year, you may remember this, Michael Jackson's life changed forever. He got burnt. Do you remember? He was recording that ad. It was for Pepsi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The purpose of the ad was because Billie Jean was going to come out. So that we'd do a massive kind of huge, high-octane advert with pyrotechnics. One of them was too close to his head. So he suffered major, major burns. This would start, actually, his journey of pain medication, you know, being addicted to pain medication.
Because he was on the opioids for the pain and then got hooked.
And then, couldn't get off of them. And then years later, obviously, you know, you could tell the damage to his mental health and to his well-being. And there followed many, you know, kind of chaotic moment in his life. But it all started in '84. Torvill won of the Winter Olympics. Bolero, do you remember that? Incredible stuff, isn't it?
And we watched that live as well, didn't we? And it was so.
I think something like 30 million people watched that.
It was,
live, and everybody, even the fellow skaters said, "Okay, that was the greatest thing we've ever seen," and they've become household names. The other thing I wanted to mention was Band Aid. Band Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas? The biggest song of the year. Remember, that was made off the back of Michael Burke's famine reports.
Yeah.
Bob Geldof wrote it in a day. All the stars.
And it had to be a good song, because it was, you know, going to be all these great stars singing on it. And it was, by great fortune, a great composition.
It was.
Bob Geldof and Midge Ure, I think, co-wrote it, didn't they?
Exactly right. There was an argument. Midge Ure said it needs to be more Christmassy. We need to put bells in it, and they decided right at the last moment, put the bells in, make it festive.
Terminator. I'm not talking about Peter Cardwell, who is the political Terminator.
Are you ready for the? I'll be back. No, maybe not. No.
Can I just say that Engineer Dave has gone to the pub?
Right.
I'll see. Yeah. Mark will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m.
You're so good.
But I'll be here on the other side of the news. 1984 was mildly significant in my life, as it involved my birth.
Oh my goodness!
So that was sort of fairly important.
That makes it a vintage year.